hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's halfway through October. Good morning and welcome to the Situation Room. My name is Eric Latif. Of course, everybody's in the house. And Oko and CT Muga. Good morning, guys.
Good morning, Eric.
So we have. Let's just get into it. It's 15th.
Yes.
Do you feel like October has actually just come and gone? No sooner had, and then it will be next week, and then we'll be in November.
And then
just
we'll
like
be
that.
singing Christmas carols.
And then we'll be singing Christmas
what
carols.
Eric has just done, he has actually told our listeners, he's given them a roadmap to his age. As you get older,
Things just fly by.
time just seems to go by really, really quickly. And you wonder. So when someone tells you it's Wednesday, say, already. And they tell you it's Tuesday, say, are you sure? I thought it was Thursday.
But always, Friday confuses people.
In this
So
country,
you're not sure Friday.
like last week,
Friday.
we had 2 Fridays.
Yes, we did.
Like, huh?
And
Is
we're
it
about
Friday
to have
yet?
another one next week.
We're about to have another one.
We're about to. When?
On Monday.
Monday's another Friday.
This
Actually,
Friday
Sunday
will
will
be
be Friday.
Sunday will be Friday.
Yeah, Sunday will be Friday.
Okay. This is a good country to live in.
This is it.
This thing of leaving the country to go to another one.
No, why?
No.
Yeah. Yep.
From what I have read, we have countries that try to emulate us but don't succeed very well. What they do is they end up reducing these lovely times of relaxation that the country affords us. Yes, holidays are wonderful things.
They are.
Yes.
It's time to relax.
Not only that, in this country, you can actually even extend it.
But did you just feel not disappointed when Kipchoge Day wasn't declared?
Oh, you had already planned it
Like-
out? You had already seen the barbecue?
No, those things take a bit of
Yesterday
time.
was meant to be Kipchoge Day. You know, yesterday was celebrate because Kipchoge has won.
The thing is this.
If he had run on a Sunday.
When I talk about extension, what I mean is that Kenyans can decide for themselves. This one,
This is a holiday.
this is a day for holiday.
And they
will-
take it.
And they will fall sick. Officially, that is.
They have
Conveniently
things to
so.
do.
Yes.
So Eliud Kipchoge, now that we're speaking about him, he's chatting with Barack Obama.
I guess that's what happens.
He's chatting with Barack Obama.
You elevate.
Oh, so the two Kenyans are having a chat.
That's it.
Well, basically, Obama tweeted, Kipchoge became the first ever to break 2 hours. Today in Chicago, Bridget Kosgei set a new women's world record. Staggering achievements on their own. They're also remarkable examples of humanity's ability to endure and keep raising the bar. This is what Obama tweeted on Sunday. So, Eliud Kipchoge saw this and replied to him, Dear Mr. Obama, thank you very much for your special words. In life, we hope to inspire others. Thank you for inspiring me. It would be my greatest honor if we could meet and discuss how we can make this world a running world. A running world is a peaceful world. So let's make use of sports to change the world. That's what Kipchoge is telling Obama. Let's meet, let's talk, let's see what can we do. Is at that level, you know?
That's what his networking circles have now turned out to be.
Is at that level.
Yep.
If you're not, Shauriako.
Stuck running.
Yes. What do you see on your headline?
We will deliver leak-proof exam, pledges Magoha. So yesterday, the exam period was launched ahead of the start of the KCPE and KCSC examinations. The government says it will mobilize 180,000 teachers and police helicopters to monitor the tests and curb cheating. So as far as they're concerned, all is set. CS Matiangi has also offered his support. And he says, Magoha says that measures have been taken to curb cheating during exams. He also said that there's no examination that will be seen before the morning it's supposed to be seen during the launch of the examination period and issuance of security padlocks at the Kenya School of Government in Nairobi yesterday. The Ministries of Education, Interior and Information, Communication and Technology will collaborate to deliver the KCPE and the KCSE examinations. He says there are still a few crooks among us and will take action against exam cheats, especially in areas that have already been mapped as prone to cheating. Matiang'i says in his part of support that additional resources have been set aside this year, including new aircraft to enable the police to deal with the emergencies and adverse weather conditions. I was a bit sad that he did not talk about the 10,000 students that have been affected by the closure of 300 schools around different parts of the country, in terms of how he hopes to mitigate what would happen because of the break that they had or have currently in learning. I thought that would be something that he would address, but unfortunately he did not. I guess it's not as big as an issue as...
Well, he's probably the ministries are basically just assuming you have an exam coming up, so sort yourself out. Right? We've told you what school to go to. Ensure that you go there.
Just go.
Just go there.
It will be seamless like that.
Yep. Now, the thing is, if you're registered for in a different center, and now here you are, your index number is not in this particular school, your index number is in a different school, so I don't know. Maybe this information
usually what is done, there are centers where they allow private candidates to
sit.
Yes.
Wow.
It's a question of either extending those or looking for schools that have the capacity. Remember, when exams start, schools are closed.
Everybody else goes
Everybody
home.
else is not there. Schools actually have space.
So there is actually, yes.
So
indeed.
it isn't as though they are stuck or they don't have alternatives. They will have alternatives. Because there will be spaces, because every school will have closed down with the exception of those who will be sitting for the exams. So it isn't as though this lack of space will actually not be an issue.
I see.
Yes.
Okay. But then it would be good to have, all former classmates in the same room.
Remember,
Maintaining
we've had
environment.
occasion in this particular show to talk about how it is the government often fails to communicate clearly what it is they are planning. Because what we're dealing with here is a problem of communication.
Absolutely.
Because I don't believe for a single second that the Kenya National Examination Council and the Ministry of Education do not know what to do in such situations. They do.
They do.
Because apart from the situation that we now have, which was created, we've had situations where floods affect learning. Or harsh conditions affect learning. Banditry affects learning. And they've been able to resolve these issues.
Yes.
So it isn't as though they do not know what to do. And this one, remember, this situation is contrived. They are the ones who close the schools. Yes, so if they've closed the schools, I am certain they have a plan. They have a plan. But this thing of communicating,
yes,
that's where the gap lies.
this is true.
Yes.
Your headline, City, what do you see?
Well, what I see, there are two things I see. And they both involve the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. One, the Star has decided to bring a supposed family issue into the public light. And it pits the widow of their late son, Fidel Castro, Diambo, Ginga. Those are all his names.
Yes, FCO. Yes.
And what are the widows' names?
The widow's name, I only remember the last one because the other name, should we say, is a bit of a tongue twister.
Is one that you get.
Yes, I've read it 3 times and it's still not fitting. It's refused to stick.
Okay.
It's a family squabble. It's a family misunderstanding. And I think this is in the headline simply because it involves the Right Honorable Raila Odinga's family. Otherwise, it is not something that would have hit the headlines.
What's a squabble?
From what I have read, there are 3 issues. One, there is the issue of the estate of the late gentleman. 2, there is the issue of the son. There's a son who was in the papers, Raila's son. And then there's yet another story that isn't coming out clearly about some twins. Now there's the story of the son not being in school, and there's a toing and froing. Again, this is a family matter And I'm wondering, this is the sort of thing I expect to see in tabloids. But I'm wondering how it is that it's gone into mainstream media. And I'm saying this because of the angle it has taken. Again, the discussion is family issues and going to court to resolve these issues. Now, as I said, family squabbles, and I'm wondering why it is being given this limelight. But
So they've gone to court.
it's in court.
And the story is quoting court, what's been presented in court.
Yes. So, given that it's in court, whatever I can say about it ends precisely there.
There.
Yes, it's a family squabble that, in my opinion, should not have been in any regular daily. The other one, they are calling it the curse of the handshake.
There's a curse alongside the handshake. now.
It is being said that prior to the handshake, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga's faction, the ODM, I'm calling it a
Faction.
it's a political faction, call it a political party, but they were the people who the country sort of like delegated the duty of being the official opposition. When I say, note what I'm saying, the country delegated. They were the official opposition, yes. But from what I'm reading, it appears that it had been a for life situation, meaning you guys and your group, you will be in the opposition
That's where you
for
belong.
life. Yes, and your role will be to provide opposition. Okay, when things go wrong, you will provide opposition, meaning you will provide the necessary levels of noise. You will provide the necessary levels of disruption so that people know about these things. The curse is now, they say, all that has gone silent. And they're saying this: the people who are in that particular party have now become cheerleaders.
Yeah, you're no longer opposing as we would have
Yes,
thought you
and
would.
it is your duty and function which we have delegated to you.
To oppose.
To oppose.
Yes. Now, what I find interesting about this, because this seems to be the public outcry, we've had debates here about the public's ability to actually voice their opinion. This is it. We've talked about the media playing their part. We're seeing what the media is doing here. The public does have a voice, and they can bring it out when they want to. So it means when they don't make noise about certain things, they have chosen not to. Again, the assertion that I brought to the fore, the public, the so-called Mwananchi, knows exactly what they want. And they also know what benefits them most. Yes, and they feel right now that this particular group of people whom they had given the duty of ensuring that the opposition for life have left their station and are no longer doing what they're supposed to do.
All right. So what's the curse of the handshake?
That is it. Wrong isn't being brought into the open, so it's being exacerbated. Things that could have gone that are going wrong are not being talked about. So they're getting, here is where now I use an English word that I heard my son mention when he was in kindergarten. Things are getting wronger.
Wronger by the day.
Wronger by the day, and they'll soon be wrongest.
And the Standard has actually dedicated how many pages to this? Page 6,
They've
7,
tried.
8, and the Financial Standard.
Yep.
The entire Financial Standard today
Yes.
is about the curse of the handshake. If you look at
It's a
anything.
big story, isn't it?
It's a big one. From banks to farms, economies bleeding jobs. Layoffs are immoral, as senators say in Push for Answers.
But if you think about
Two
it,
Kenyans
Eric,
speak of the agony of losing their
if
jobs.
you think about it, Eric, the opposition have actually done what they're supposed to do. Because in the absence of what people refer to as the push, they have actually laid bare. Because if what they're saying is true, then it means...
Then this is the work of the opposition.
Yes, because
This is
it is still the work of the opposition, because by their absence, according to them, all these things, these ills, have now come to the fore.
All right, so listen to this headline on page 8. How the handshake has turned Uhuru past critics to his cheerleaders. And here we are quoting the people who should be in the opposition. The National Assembly Minority Leader, John Mbadi, says the voice of the minority is being heard. We can make recommendations that can be taken into consideration. So what is happening in government now is per recommendations of ODM chairman, John Mbadi, who's the National Minority Assembly Minority Leader. Pick another one. Homa Bay Woman Rep. This is Gladys Wanga. No economy grows without borrowing. In fact, if you look at data from America, borrowing is fine. The Chief Whip, National Assembly Minority Chief Whip, Junaid Mohammed, when I realized that the war on corruption has serious political support all the way from the president to the speaker, I was convinced that this money will be spent in a good manner. Which money? We know how money has been spent. But
Eric, everybody you are referring to here is a politician.
he's an opposition. He's opposition.
No,
Is the opposition that you're
Commander,
saying?
Commander is not.
So now let's go to Maina Commander. Maina Commander, who is a nominated MP from Jubilee, says even those in Tanga, he's in Kieleweke, even those in Tanga at the bottom of their heart know the handshake has brought peace. Unlike in the past, even those in the opposition can access ministers and various government departments. It's about access.
So, you see,
critics have become cheerleaders. Opposition is becoming cheerleaders.
Ask
This is
yourself a
what you're
simple
saying.
question. 4 pages dedicated to discussing things that have gone wrong. Is that not so?
Yep.
When was the last time you had such a thing?
Daily.
4 pages. I premised
It's
it
just
on
that
this.
today we are actually pointing the finger at.
Eric,
This is where the problem
Eric,
is.
stop rephrasing my question and then answering the question you're asking yourself. Let me start again.
Ask.
When was the last time you saw any mainstream media dedicating 4 pages to a discussion such as this one?
Gone wrong.
Things that have gone wrong.
4 pages. Not talking about it. 4 pages.
It's not analysis, it's not numbers, it's not financials. It's a discussion around something that has gone wrong. Really, 4 pages. It's
When is the last time we had a handshake?
It's a book. You see, he's asking.
We're
his
talking
own
about a
question.
handshake.
Eric, I see what you're doing, and it's not working. The question is, we've not
It's
seen
about a
some.
handshake.
We've not seen.
It's a simple
we've not
question. It's
seen-
never happened.
Yeah.
It's
We've
never
not
happened.
seen
Never
so
happened.
many
We've
inches.
never had
so
a
many
handshake.
inches.
We've
Never
never,
happened.
we've
If I were
never
to-
seen
if I were to
bipartisan
play-
things like this.
Let me play you. Let me pay you the compliment and introduce my own spin to it. Okay? You've tried yours. Hasn't gone very well. Let me try and see if mine can at least do a little better.
I can guarantee you it will not. Okay, go ahead.
When you look at the details that the Standard has gone into, it tells you that the actions of the opposition, much as it seems to be inadvertent, has brought out to the public in detail all the things that you would have wanted the opposition to do. So the media has
playing the
taken the
opposition's
role,
role.
yes.
Has played the position of the opposition.
Not only have they done that, they are showing leadership. Remember my assertion.
Bring the fourth estate
Into the estate.
into the
the
estate.
estate.
Yes.
So this is it.
This is it.
These
And
are
it's-
examples of how it can actually happen.
You can see it is happening. They're playing. So there is actually no gap. This gap people seem to speak of doesn't exist. And this one, the media has partnered with the people who own and run the constitution. Is called the public of Kenya, from whom everybody else derives power. Now, how,
That's been.
He told you he was going to do it.
That's been.
It's still.
it is a
going-
powerful partnership. Would you not say so, Eric?
It's a very good attempt.
But you know, this issue of Gladys Wanga, it is important that as a politician, I'm picking her out because I don't know what her background and training is. I shy off making statements on economics because there are people who are trained to make these discussions. But she has waded right in and talked about borrowing.
And she's saying even America. America's borrowing is at 60%. It's heading towards 100%.
She is right in that every country borrows, but there is
There's certain elements
there's
that
a
you must look
framework
at
within which that
within
borrowing
which they
takes
operate.
place.
Nobody just goes and dips
You
their
don't
hand in
just
the honey
borrow.
pot because they feel
Yeah.
like it's
No. It's a little. That's what I'm saying.
It's a little bit more
complex
complicated than that.
Yes. However,
However,
that
well,
was her contribution to it, so we will leave it at that, won't we?
yes, let's leave it there and move on to the fact that insurance claims for Likoni car has been settled, and this is a bit of a disturbing story, because this is how it was presented. As plans to retrieve a vehicle that plunged into the Indian Ocean in the Likoni Channel in Mombasa were underway, Mr. John Wambua was busy working to secure the insurance payouts for his car, it has emerged. When the nation was grieving a week after the car carrying Miriam Kigenda and her daughter Amanda Mutheo sank, Mr. Wambua contacted his agent to follow up his comprehensive insurance that had covered his car. So unfortunately, they made it seem as if he was looking for money while the rest of the country was looking for the bodies of his wife and child.
What has one got to do with the other?
Exactly. So apparently now, because this vehicle obviously can no longer be used, the insurance has paid his
If
money.
his wife and daughter were sick in hospital and the same story was written about him going to his insurers to ensure that they are covered for the hospital bill, how on earth would that sound like an adverse activity that he was involved in?
Exactly. Why would it be? But it's now made us to sound as if he really didn't care what was going on, and what he was after was only the money for the insurance.
Now
And
now
the
this-
way in which the
this
story
is-
was
this
written
is-
was
this
not
is
right.
now the other side of these things that we do.
Yeah.
Because now we, the media, are looking for a story in a non-story.
In a non-story.
He's just doing due diligence. That's what you
Exactly.
do.
What if he didn't have money?
If your car has an accident, that's an accident.
That's the
That's
and
what
there's
you
a
would do.
process. There's a process you follow. And
there's
remember,
a period as well.
Yes,
there's
within-
a period
yes.
within which you lodge a claim.
and he went to the people who manage his insurance. That's what you do.
Exactly.
In fact, if you didn't, it would be foolhardy on your part.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he only
It would
did
be
what
wrong
he
for him.
needed to do.
So you remember the Ethiopian air crash,
Yes.
the Ethiopian Airlines? There were 32 Kenyans who were involved in that. So the remains of 28 of them were returned to the country and delivered to their families yesterday. 28 because 4 were buried or cremated in Addis Ababa. So the 28 remains were brought yesterday, and now the families are going to go ahead with the burial plans. Brings some sense of closure, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if it's something that you can able to say goodbye to, I also realize that we need to be clear that it was not complete remains,
Yeah.
because of the nature of the crash.
The nature of the crash.
Yeah, so
The
I mean,
nature of the crash.
Yeah, there you go. It's coming out, sorry. So I mean, they were able to get something that they could then say goodbye to. It took a number of months, but due diligence in this case, I believe, was done by the Ethiopian authorities as well as Ethiopian Airlines and the families involved to make sure that people could get something that they could then bury. You
Yep.
know, so.
At least there's closure.
Yeah.
Something happened in Kibra on Sunday. You saw the pictures of some bit of violence that happened during the campaigns.
Yes, there were
So
some
some
There was
vehicles.
claims that some,
stoning-
yes.
Vehicles
Stoning of
burned.
vehicles and stuff like that. Now, apparently, a middle-aged man died after falling from a moving vehicle during the campaigns for the Kibra by-election. He was hanging onto a moving Toyota Prado when he slipped outside the center and was run over by other speeding vehicles in a convoy that had left Kibra DC grounds, where ODM leaders had converged to campaign for their candidate Imran Okoth. Unfortunate. It is so sad.
These are some of the things that we see
It
when
is
it
so
comes
sad.
to periods like this that we wish we could avoid,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. It's very, very sad. One of the other big stories?
Well, I don't know if it's a big story, which should be a big story. Alarm over rise in pending sexual abuse cases. There are over 200 defilement cases and rape cases at Makindu Courthouse that have been piling up since 2014. Hundreds of sexual abuse cases remain unsolved at the Makindu Law Courts in Makwene County. This is in one county. Yesterday, 3 visiting magistrates joined their colleagues at the courthouse in an unprecedented move to deal with the backlog of the cases, which have been on the rise for the past 5 years. The cases have been piling up since 2014, according to court records, and have jolted government agencies and county leaders into action. More than 100 border riders, civil servants, farmhands, teachers, traders, and pastors were jailed for defilement and rape between January and last month, with Kilungu leading in the number of convicts.
This is just in Makindu
This
alone.
is just in Makindu. So, I mean, the light has not been shown on the rest of the country, but that is in one area. Yeah,
It's a big number.
it is.
Well, this is the Situation Room right here on Spice FM at 94.4 in Nairobi. Remember, you can download the standard e-paper app from Google Play Store and Apple App Store. Just for one standard fee, you access all of the standard media group, standard group publications. That's the standard newspaper, the standard. You've got the Mount Kenya Star, and all the other publications of the standard. Just one fee, and you do that. So just download the standard e-paper app from the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Good morning. It's 24 minutes past 6 o'clock. The Situation Room continues. The conversations continue as well. This is our hashtag is hashtag Situation Room. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter, Spice FM KE. Good morning.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
5 minutes after 6 o'clock. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting in Nairobi on 94.4, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, Malindi 97.6, and of course every morning we live stream on Facebook, Spice FM, and on YouTube as well, and on our website www.spicefm.co.ke. You can join into the conversation during the conversation 0719 012 or also you can comment on our Facebook page Spice FM KE, and you can tag us on Twitter hashtag Situation Room, and our Twitter handle is Spice FM KE. So guys, I want to tell you something about a strategy that's associated with an Australian man. This man is called Linton Crosby. So, you know, when you're having a conversation with somebody and, you know, let's say you're in a boardroom, in a meeting, and you've been cornered, and you're having this conversation with people, and you feel really everybody is on your case, and they have really come after you, and what they're saying is tough. It's not going to be easy on you. So what do you do to get out of that situation? You want to divert attention. You basically pick a dead cat and place it on the table. Everybody now starts talking about the dead cat. And the conversation that we were having earlier dissipates. Destruction strategy 101, dead cutting. It's actually a phrase in English. You throw a dead cat on the table. Fling a dead cat on the table. This is a strategy that has been used all over the world. It has actually even been used by children. You spoke about your child and using wronger terms, right? Think about your son as well. When he has been mischievous and has done something wrong, and he knows that you're going to ask him, he starts by diverting your attention. So he'll come and start telling you, Daddy, I love your watch. This watch is so... What time is it? By this watch. What day is it today? Is today Tuesday or Wednesday? He completely diverts your attention. He will not tell you, Daddy, today I did.
So the child is dead cutting you.
The child is dead cutting you. We have seen it happen with Barack Obama all the time. Not Barack Obama, rather the current U.S. president as well, Donald Trump. Donald Trump has dead cutted so many times. Something major is happening, and so he just tweets and throws everybody's focus from what is happening to his tweet. His conversation carries the day. Now, there's a gentleman who is very, very sharp as well, and people assume that he is not sharp. This man is Mike Mbuvi Sonko. We know what was happening to Mike Mbuvi Sonko in August and September, EACC cases, all that talk about, okay, so what's happening to Sonko? And then suddenly, Sonko went quiet. But just the other day, Sonko started sending us videos from France. And over the weekend, we saw very many videos coming in from France. And we started talking about Sonko again. But he's not actually talking to us. He's just sending us videos. But this is exactly what he wanted us to do. He's diverting attention from everything that is coming at him to now we start talking about why is Sonko dressed like this? Why has Sonko changed his accent now? Is Sonko now really going to party in Paris? Is this what Sonko is all about? Remember also last week we saw the return of Beatrice Elachi to the county assembly as speaker, and people were saying, this may be Sonko's hand in it. Sonko basically owned the entire conversation throughout the weekend by dead cutting us. This man is extremely brilliant. Extremely brilliant. And this is what he did.
He dead cutted.
He dead cutted us.
Or continues to dead cut us.
All the time.
Obviously, there's something that Sonko is running away from. Or there is a situation that he does not want to face.
Yep.
And this is why he's in all the things that he's doing, he's actually sending a very clear message to anybody who would listen. And even to those who might be looking for him, or because let's be honest, they are looking for him to have him answer certain questions on allegations of corruption in the county government. And he is just not here. He seems to be very busy doing a lot of nothing and sending out these videos, and you be excited and you start to ask yourselves, is this actually the Nairobi governor? Is this the kind of activity that I should be involving himself in? And then that is where your attention goes, and those are the things that you now start to focus on, without asking perhaps the more pertinent question of why is the Nairobi governor then not in office expending his duty, and then why is he not answering the call to come then and answer these allegations of corruption that have been leveled against him.
Yeah, suddenly what does Sonko do? He's struggling a cat and throwing it on the table.
That is what he's doing.
You are aware that some animal rights groups may not particularly like what we've just done.
By
it's
flinging a dead cat.
No, we are promoting the torture of animals or the mistreatment of animals.
Or the mistreatment of the same.
Here's the thing, though. Sonko, people assume that Sonko just, wakes up and runs by the day. That Sonko just does things because today is a new day, so what's going to happen today? He just goes with the flow. No. Sonko is a master political tactician, and he's proving every day by what he's doing. Every single day, Sonko is actually planning ahead. And this is what he has done. He keeps diverting our attention.
But let
He
me
keeps
ask,
bringing us into something different.
this matter that Ndu suggested he might be running, what could he possibly be running away from?
That's the question, though.
You
He's
see-
been away for quite a while. For the last easily 6 weeks, eight weeks, he has not been around.
No.
What is he? If he was on national assignment,
We haven't seen him on TV, but does that mean that he's been away from the country for the length of time that you say?
No. He
I'm
has been
saying he's
around.
not been around in terms of in office, expending his duties. We've not seen. He did come back. He did come back into the country and asked a certain number of people to leave or be suspended from the county government after the tragedy that happened at the Precious Talent School. After that, we did not
Quiet.
hear of the man again.
And in fact, even that time when he came back, uncharacteristic of Sonko, he was not seen in public.
Let me
He
ask you.
issued statements. Sonko does not issue just statements. He issues a statement, yes.
he is there.
But he will speak. You will see him speaking. You'll see him speaking. He will be there saying, this is what happened. I want so-and-so to go home. I want you people to answer. Sonko was not seen.
Aha. So what you're actually saying is that what we were accustomed to seeing the man do, he no longer does.
Yes, and how is
And
it
we're
that
trying to figure out why it is we don't see him doing what
And
he
the
has been
public
doing.
discourse has
Yes.
been because of that time. Remember when he
why-
was...
and this is at the same time that these allegations of corruption have popped up.
Yes.
But is this the first time that these such allegations have come against the man?
This
So
is the f-
strongly, this is
so
the fa-
strongly. This is the first time at the level at which they have. This
What
is the
makes
first
them
time.
strong? What makes them stronger than the other times?
Was he called in and grilled for a number
8
of hours
hours.
that he
It
was
wasn't
at
the
this
first time?
It wasn't the
not
first
for
time.
the length, not for the length of time. And yes, but even these allegations of garbage allocation of companies, etc., etc.
No,
His name.
garbage collection.
What did I say?
Garbage,
Allocation.
Garbage
allocation.
collection, rather allocation to companies of who
Yes.
would collect the garbage, right? The allegations have come up time and time again, but interestingly enough, it was reported that he has never been mentioned in that particular sector. In this, finally, or should we say finally, as concerns the garbage collection in Nairobi, his name finally came up. In terms of the allocation to companies.
Yes.
His name finally came up. It had never come up before. And then we see this kind of
And we even saw him
Circus,
sitting in a car and giving an interview and saying, "You know what? Yes, I know. I need to name a deputy governor. When are you going to name a deputy governor? Tomorrow." Did he?
And he
He
didn't.
didn't. Since that day, when he was actually saying that he was going to name a deputy governor, we didn't see him. We have not seen Sonko since then.
And it is interesting because, as is characteristic of him, when these tragedies do happen, we don't hear from him. We see him.
We see
He
him on
would
the
have
ground.
been at Precious Talent School. He would have been at the Likoni channel. He would have been there physically to either lend support or to lend a hand or to give some kind of monetary assistance. It's interesting that these two things happened within days of each other, a week at most of each other, and he was not there. And then out of the blue pops up colorful images of him dancing.
video, not just one video clip, not just a picture like we saw the video clip of him allegedly coming back from New York to deal with the Precious Talent School, like the tragedy. No, this time it was video after video. Him on video saying, "There's another one, and another one there, and another one there, and another one, and then another one." Him coming out of a place and rapping and saying, "You Nairobi guys, stop doing what you're doing, you Nairobi MCAs. I'm coming back. I'm coming to sort these things out." This is Sonko now talking to us from Paris.
So what you're saying, therefore, if I may borrow from the headline in the Standard, that this Sonko is beginning to suffer the curse of having made a life in the public eye.
Sonko is being a strategist. He's dead cutting us, diverting our attention, and he knows it.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How, you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelogue. Travelogue is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelogue, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelogue, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
Good morning once again. Tiambu Road, Gong Road, our wings called everywhere seems to be clear right now, and I'm sure in the next 24 minutes it's not going to be that way. So let's check back in about half an hour and see what the roads look like. There's a bit of traffic jam on Wayaki Way, but that's likely to morph into something more of a monstrous value in a very short while, and I'll give you that information as soon as we get round to that time. So enjoy it for now. It's going to change very shortly. That's the traffic.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's 22 minutes to 7 o'clock. Good morning, and how are you doing? This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Eric Latif. In the room, we have Siti Muga and Ndu Oko. Well, we are also live streaming on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, Spice FM KE, on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. This morning, we're talking about Mike Mbuvi Sonko, the governor of Nairobi, His Excellency, Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko. And I'm saying he's a master political tactician. He knows his game. This man, we think that he's just doing things haphazardly. He's actually doing things in a very calculated manner. So the videos that we saw coming out of France over the weekend, where Sonko was showing us the public transport system. What city was this? Was it Marseille? Or,
Yeah, Marseille,
right?
yeah.
And then we also saw him coming out of some hotel and doing a video a bit and saying, you MCAs in Nairobi, what is this that you're doing, with the fight between Beatrice Alachi and majority's leader in the county assembly, and saying, I'm coming back to sort these issues out. And then we see videos of Sonko in a restaurant where a waiter is actually coming to tell him, I have been told that you're going to be the next president of Kenya. And he said, who told you this? And Sonko is like, who told you? No. I can feel it in you that you're going to be the next president of Kenya. No. The president of Kenya is a decision by the people of Kenya. And he made sure that we have seen that video. Mike Mbuvi Sonko is actually sending us a message, and Mike Mbuvi Sonko is retaking the conversation from what people have been saying in the last 6 to 8 weeks that Sonko is in trouble, that EACC is after Sonko, that the national government is going to dump Sonko, that, Sonko needs to hire, to get a deputy governor whom he can trust, that if you see Elachi coming back into office, this is a way for Sonko to get out. Sonko is basically dead cutting us. And dead cut is a strategy of diverting attention. Throw a dead cut on the table. People start talking about the dead cut and nothing else.
I can imagine that by virtue of his personality, the kind of personality that we've seen come out as a public figure and also that of the governor, I can imagine that such a thing would not be so far-fetched as an idea. However, I'm wanting to ask myself, onto what end? Divert attention from, possible allegations of corruption, etc., and that being the case, that the Nairobi governor has then now been pulled into the foray. However, onto what end? What would the diversionary tactics bring? What would it give him? So for some time, your attention is taken away from that, so that what could then happen in the interim? You
own the narrative. You see, as a politician, politicians like to own everything every day. So here it is. This is a narrative that actually is being propelled without his contribution, and it's negative to him. So you'd rather have a negative conversation that he controls. Now we're talking about why is he dressing like this? Why is Sonko in France? What is he? He's looking at other buses and he can't implement the same here. He is in control of that narrative, not the other narrative.
So what you're saying, for instance, is if we were to look at what the Minister for Education, CS for Education, has done, he has not addressed the issue of the people who work within his ministry and who are responsible for the sort of things that enable the disasters that we've seen to occur.
Yes.
But he has focused on shutting down schools. So that's a dead cut.
That is what Professor Magoha has done. Dead cutting us. Constantly. This is what happens. And in fact, yes, you brought out a very good example.
I like this example.
You like the dead cat, huh?
No. No. You are now turning this conversation and you are fast heading into making it a discussion on witchcraft. What do you mean I like dead cats?
Well, I actually should have added the method. I should have said you like the dead cat method.
Strategy.
I should have said strategy after that. But I can see how not completing things can bring problems. I can see how not actually doing the right thing or saying the right thing
at the right time,
can bring issues. I can see that.
When you say it, I'm now thinking broadly. Yes, Moses Kuria dead cats a lot.
Yeah.
Okay? In fact, why am I giving this gentleman so much airtime? Politicians dead cat, a great deal. But the ones whom we see often enough, this is what they're doing, isn't it?
That's what they're doing.
Yes.
Some of them actually just happens by a happy accident. I think, let's not give all politicians the credit. But there are those...
They're doing it, they don't actually realize that is what
they don't realize that they're dead cutting. Oh. But there are those that if you actually study them, you realize this person has deliberately done this to divert our attention.
Okay.
If you conducted a poll today on Mike Sonko, he's constantly on the headlines right now. He's on top of mind. And I'm sure if you did an account today of a poll today and said, what if Nairobi was to be subjected to a new gubernatorial election today? Mike Sonko would come back.
He would come back to run in the election?
He would come back. He would win it.
So then
with a clear majority.
He would come back. Oh, right. So you're saying he would come back and actually win, not that necessarily he would come back and be present, as in present running.
No.
Okay.
Not that he'd come back to the country. He's definitely coming back to the country. He's not running away.
But I've got to ask myself, then what happens? Or are we saying that he's such an astute leader that he has set things and the ball is actually rolling? So even without him being here, the county continues to run at optimum level, and the services that he would have otherwise run if he was here, everything is running well. So he's actually shown that he's actually a very good leader, and has shown that if you do your job right from the beginning and you empower your people, then they can actually run without you. Is that what we're saying?
I'm not sure I'd like to say that.
Well, is Nairobi not running? Has anything fallen apart since
it's a
been
government,
away?
It's a machinery. If we didn't have a governor, we would still operate.
That's so like...
Would still operate. But in this particular case, the governor keeps reminding us that I'm the governor. Even if I'm in France, even if I'm having parties, I'm still the governor, and I am the one who's running the show.
But then we've got to ask ourselves the seriousness then with which he takes this position, because that's what I asked initially. Is he on national assignment? Is he finding out some pointers that he's going to then come back and use to run the city? What exactly is he doing?
Is
and
it
I
a
think it's important.
mission?
You are asking us to try and define and analyze a politician's activities, but that we can do. You're asking us to analyze his thought process.
That we can't do.
politician.
But I'm actually asking,
an accomplished politician.
what exactly is going on? Why is he not here? What is he doing there? You know, like the other day we saw
Let me
DP
ask
Ruto
Benchmarking.
went to Vienna, went to Austria to cheer on Eliud
Kipchoge.
It's still before
Eliud
7 o'clock. Please
Yes.
understand, right? He came, and then he came back. He's back, right? So we saw he went for that purpose. He came back. Can we definitely say, even definitively say, what Sonko
Maybe
is
he's on
doing
official leave.
in France?
You see, we haven't seen him
Yes.
hold
What is he
any
doing?
bilateral talks,
Please,
any meetings.
Ask yourself a simple question. Is the county government running?
This is what I was saying. So there are two things here. So have we said that he's such a good leader, such an astute leader, that he has set things in motion? His county officials are and ministries
Understand
under him,
their job.
understand
They
their
have the
job.
brief
They're doing
clear.
it right. They have the brief. They're following it. The city has not fallen apart.
You know-
So he's such a good leader that he has set that in motion and has been able to empower his people and delegate responsibility and authority and say that even while I am away, keep the house in order, children, shall you?
Let me remove the dead cat from the table for the time being. What do you mean away? We're in the 21st century. Must he be physically in Nairobi to communicate with his people? The answer is a resounding no.
So why did he have to come back during the precious talents?
Again,
Must he be here?
no, he doesn't.
Did he have to come back to issue
no,
a statement?
No, he doesn't. But I'm going by what you have been proposing. Children died. He's an astute politician. He made sure he was here. That he considered to be important. The day-to-day running of the county, hey, there's an executive that does that work. And what makes you think he cannot communicate with those people on a daily basis? We don't know that, do we? But he can if he wants to. And whatever he wants done, I am certain he can. But remember, people in that position don't necessarily have to be there physically. They delegate even power. For instance, when the CS talks to you, he is head of a ministry. Does the president have to come and tell you to listen to what that individual is telling you? The answer is no. Because he is, by virtue of his office, representing a part of government. If the PS in that ministry speaks to you, we never think of it actively, but we know exactly that this is power speaking to you because the power is delegated. The same applies to any county government.
We've seen even instances where people have asked, where is Uhuru?
I was
For a couple of days.
a couple of days. I
Where
was
is
going
the
to give that
president?
example and say we don't. He's mentioned in the papers, but we don't actually hear him.
We don't see him.
Yeah.
No, we don't. Does it mean the country is not running? The
No,
answer
there's
is
a time
no.
when it was
The
a
country
specific,
still continues to run.
specific talk of, we last saw him abroad in some meeting, then the next time we don't see him, and we haven't seen him arrive.
So what?
And
are
we
we
know
doing?
when the
Yes.
president arrives back in the country, there's fanfare. There's people
There
to receive
is.
him. So we didn't see those images of him being received. So people are asking,
Actually,
the last time we saw our president,
if you
he
look at the
was
history of
detained.
this,
Why is he-
our first president did not travel out of the country. Period. He never did. Didn't. Probably went to Uganda furthest. Okay.
Yep.
Border of Kenya, Tanzania. That's it. The president who followed traveled a great deal, and the president usually was met by someone called a chief of protocol, wherever it is needed.
Yes.
The second president was met by all the ministers.
Plus the military top brass.
All. The third president had a different style. You know, you're talking about presidential styles here, okay? This particular president has come with his own style. Now, but in our minds, we are accustomed to the president being heard of daily because there's a period in our times when that happened. We are accustomed to seeing the president.
The leader being...
Must be seen. It follows the same trajectory of thought. Have you ever noticed, for instance, how we Kenyans speak? When you talk about having a conversation, this is how you preface it. We need to sit down and talk. And you wonder, can we not speak if we are not sitting down? We must meet and sit down.
We must sit down
The
and talk.
sitting down is a key component to having a serious conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, because the sitting down assumes that you're settled. You're
And you're
settled,
focused.
you're focused, and whatever it is that I am going to tell you, you would have received it in a relaxed manner, and then you would have understood what it is that I have to say, and then you and I can have, positive discourse, and then we could have left. We would leave, and then when we stand up, we go armed with the information to then be able to go and expend.
Precisely. So we equate the presence of the president with being in charge.
Right.
And then we pass it on to other leaders. If we don't see you, then how are you in charge?
You're not in charge.
Yes.
So basically what we are saying now is that the sentiment would be that because Mike Mbuvi Sonko is not around, that really there's no one in charge and that things are going to the dogs,
And I'm
as
trying
it
to
were.
tell
And
you
him
that
sending
is-
us videos was actually trying to show us I'm in charge.
Yeah, thank
He comes
you.
out somewhere and, rap, Nairobi. You MCAs.
In fact,
I'm coming back to
the
sort out this
entire
issue. What's
statement,
this?
you understand two things. MCAs, Nairobi. The rest.
Yeah, MCAs. Sort out. Wacheni bana, wacheni. This man is completely in charge, and he diverted the attention back to himself. The story was about Guyo, Ali Guyo, the majority leader. Beatrice Elachi, the speaker. Sonko has taken charge again of the narrative. And you also mentioned Professor George Magoha, somebody who you have seen dead cutting. Who else have you seen dead cutting?
If we are talking,
People who dead cat. You're just seeing this clearly.
let's make a list of
This
people
is
who
clearly
did cat.
and instances where we've been dead catted. Instances where we have completely been dead catted. You can just see this.
The time we were dead catted was the time when the governor of Machakos called in. He dead catted us almost throughout that entire conversation.
How so?
Because we would ask a question, then he would set his own question and answer it.
Right.
Like when we asked a simple question, all right.
Who are these?
Who commissioned this project?
That's it. Who commissioned this project? Because it seems like a national project.
Yeah.
Hey, this man didn't dead cat us. He resurrected dead cats.
And he went on to tell us about how wonderful things actually are in his. So actually, at some point, I found myself thinking, "Wow, I must visit Machakos."
Yeah, there's all these
Because
things that he
there's an
says.
ambulance at
Yes.
every corner.
Now,
there are
we've
green
got
fields
roads.
of glory and rainbows.
The road that I did, the 33
hospitals
kilometer
are
road,
in
is still
impeccable
there.
condition.
Now you
We
see,
have a cancer center that I just launched last week.
dead catting seems to be a sign of a very accomplished politician.
And a communicator.
Yes.
It's a strategy.
Yes, because this gentleman, the governor of Machakos, clearly understands how to communicate and he clearly knows how to put messages that suit his purposes to the fore. He understood. I have a forum.
Yes.
And he utilized it to his advantage. Yes. Let me talk again. We had the Secretary General of ODM here. If you listen to little everything he said, he was telling us how wonderful ODM is.
Oh yes.
And it's in charge.
Yes.
And he actually is also in control. As Secretary General,
General.
he knows everything that's happening in the party.
He knows. He knows.
And you would actually forget that there is one principal leader of ODM who the people follow, with their tongues open, wagging, basically. You would forget that. And you would actually believe that ODM is a party that is ideology based and pursues issues in this country, and development issues are actually at the fore of what they want. You would actually believe that from the words that he spoke.
But it is, all our political parties are ideology based. It's just that the form of
The form of ideology.
The form of ideology is in an individual.
0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Good morning. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We're talking about the political strategy called dead cutting. And dead cutting is where you are having a conversation that's not going your way, and to divert attention and bring the attention to something else, you throw a dead cat on the table. People start talking about the dead cat on the table, and they forget what they were discussing prior to that. And Mike Mbuvi Sonko has demonstrated that very, very well to us this weekend. He sent us a number of videos. He made sure that there were very many videos that were coming out of France, of Sonko's this, Sonko the other, Sonko this, Sonko the other. He diverted our attention from what was happening. Elachi going back into the county assembly. He also diverted our attention from what we've been saying, that Sonko is hiding, Sonko is running away from what should have been happening. Sonko was taking the conversation back to himself, and in a way that he controls. We want to know, what other instances have you seen of dead cutting?
Well, I'm trying to think of others. I think also, I don't know. I don't
Look,
think anything comes to my.
If you think about politicians, then you'll be spoiled for choice. But let's look at the time when we had this saga of many containers of oil that have been stranded at
The port.
Yes, and dead cats all over the place. If you talk to the Kenyan Bureau of Standard, they said one thing. Spoke to the minister in charge, said one thing. Spoke to the people who imported it, said one thing. Everyone was dead catting. Remember, then came the issue of, this oil lacks blah, 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 blah,
necessary
blah, blah,
vitamins for your health.
And
Yes.
they don't have sufficient blah, 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 blah. It became a health discussion. The truth is, what we use as a base for the oil that we have in the edible oils is palm oil. We don't produce it. We import it. There is no producer of edible oils who doesn't import it. So this actually was a trade war. That's what it was. It was never presented as
And the
that.
CS was getting into it.
He was in it.
Nathaniel is calling in and he's on the road. Good morning, Nathaniel.
Good morning, Latif. Good morning, Ndu Oko. Good morning, Educationist Muga.
Good morning.
Thank you very much, sir.
Now, thank you for teaching me a new strategy or a reference to a strategy that is being used. But I think it's a polite way of the statement fooling people.
Well, that is certainly one way of looking at it.
And I think the other estate that City brought in today, an estate into the a state into the state, is also dead cutting Kenyans. Time and again.
How?
That is what estate.
You're accusing me of throwing dead cats at Kenyans, are you?
For example, there's a story you've just talked about when you're doing a show.
Yes.
The Likoni Ferry incident.
Yes.
And now you want to cut us and take our attention to insurance claim and how an average Kenyan would think that Mr. Hambua was worried about his car and not the family.
Oh, right. Okay, that could be
You-
the way one newspaper was looking at it this morning and saying, well, we should actually focus on the tragedy as opposed to the little side shows of whether he was able to get his insurance back or not.
Yes, because you and I know insurance in this Kenya will not refund a claim.
They actually did.
Such-
Interestingly enough, they did yesterday, and they presented the check to
Very
him
fast.
very, very quickly.
They saw an opportunity for publicity.
They
Yes,
actually
at the
gave
same
him the
time-
money yesterday. Yeah.
So why is that news? And we don't know how the family is planning the burial and how the state is planning to compensate him for the loss of his family.
Nathaniel, let me explain something. The point you make is an extremely valid one. There's a segment of the show where we simply read out what is in the papers. So that's what we did. We were reading what in the papers and then we had a little discourse on it. And we're saying,
Which I
look,
really appreciate.
yes, and we're saying, look, it doesn't really matter. This man has an insurance, and it was an accident, so it's not something that should actually form the sort of news that was being presented to us. That really is what we was trying to say.
It is very true, and I agree with you, except that that's why I mentioned an average Kenyan
Yes.
I see.
who will not listen to what you are saying and focus on.
Focus on the money part of it. Right.
I see. So it is I now who has misunderstood you. Forgive me. But thank you for bringing it out.
Nathaniel,
Yeah,
thank you very much for calling. Where are you, Nathaniel, right now?
Right now I'm on University Way,
Mm-hmm.
under the bridge.
Moving.
Yeah, moving towards town, and it has stopped. So slowly moving.
All right. So moving towards town, University Way has started to stop.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Nathaniel. Have a good day. We wish you all the best in traffic.
Thank you. And where is Njeriton today?
Jerry will be with us shortly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Asante.
Thank you.
We're discussing the dead cut strategy that's being deployed by politicians over and over, not just local politicians, international politicians as well. If you think of a situation where politicians locally and abroad have dead cutted us, diverting our attention from something that's big, that's happening to them, that's actually negative to them, but diverting their attention and letting us have another conversation that is, it doesn't matter whether it's negative or positive, as long as it's not what hurts them. This is what we'd like you to tell us. 0719-012-600. We're actually analyzing all of them this morning. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Eric Latif. Ndu Oko and CT Muga in the studio. Jerry Thorne will be joining us shortly. Well, our number again, 0719-012-600. And of course, you can also comment on Facebook, Spice FM KE, and on Twitter, #Situation Room. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
All right, near the Garden City Mall is not moving. It's not as bad, but as being at a standstill. But traffic is moving bumper to bumper, really. Wacky Way heading into town, also there is traffic, and joining me the University Way trying to get into the CBD. Something needs to be done about the stretch from the Makadara Railway Station to Likoni Road Junction on Jogo Road. It's a perennial snarl up. Talk about some linguistic gymnastics this morning. All right. Mombasa Road, of course, trying to head down and join the Southern Bypass. Traffic is bumper to bumper there. Hopefully it will open up as the morning crawls by. Langata Road and Ngong Road heading out towards the CBD as well. Actually, Ngong Road in both directions. We've got some traffic drama there as well. See anything that we need to know about, do give us a call. We'll give you more detailed updates as to what the traffic looks like this morning. 0719-012-600 is the number to call. We'll straighten things out as we get along.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. CT Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
And thank you very much for choosing this as your only way to start your day. Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting in Nairobi 94.4, in Malindi 97.7, Nyeri 90.9, Eldoret 96.7, 96.0 Nakuru, Kisumu 102.5, and Mombasa is on 87.9. And that's where Lillian is calling from this morning. Good morning, Lillian.
Good morning, how are you?
Salama kabisa, shikamo.
Mimi ndio mdogo bwana, naambia nyinyi shikamoni.
Shikamoni.
Marahaba.
Shikamoni.
Marahaba.
Wala sijaintiki,
Marahaba. Hujambo lakini?
Salama sana. Sijambo, sijui nyinyi wenzangu.
Hofu kwako?
Hofu na mashaka kwako wewe. Sasa nasemaje?
Asante dadangu, tuambie.
Hata mimi sijui wewe.
Ndu hujambo?
Si jambo.
Salama sana.
Is that not what you say?
Yes,
it is.
Yes. You're on the right track.
Thank you, dear.
Lillian, stop dead cutting us.
No, that's what I want to do. Now, I don't want to go to politicians, but I want to go to this other corporate world.
Yes.
Right now, we have just finished. It's like we look like we are done with the Kenya ferry. But do you know these people? They have just dead cut and resurrected everything. Because they have retrieved the body, yes. They have done whatever they have done, yes. But no one is coming back to tell us when are they going to fix the ferry I pay 240 every day to cross. That's a return, and the ramps are still down. The ferry have not been serviced. As it is this morning, the ramps are still down. So what have they done? They've just discarded and resurrected because, yes, as Kenyans, we are happy the bodies are out. Yes, as Kenyans, we are happy Mr. Wambua and the family will now have a closure. But what will happen to future? Who is coming back to tell us when are these things going to be packed away and be sorted properly?
So you think that entire operation there by the Navy and the Navy taking charge and showing us...
Exactly. The Navy, the Kenya Navy, the government, the Kenya Ferry, they've just retrieved the body and they're happy about it. They were throwing the flowers inside it, forgetting that, yes, that's one thing they have done, which they could have done for those one day, not even 13 days. So my question is, this dead cat that they have already put on the table and we are happy that the body is out, because now we are happy about that, yes? But when are they coming to sort out the ramp? When are they coming to tell us for those 20-something years? Because I've been raised and brought up in Mombasa. I've crossed that ferry. And I was so shocked to find out that you don't have a rescue team. So who will this coming back to say, now let me clear this dead cat on the table.
And let's discuss the matter.
A, B, C, D, and let's discuss the matter.
I see.
Who is coming to come back and tell us, you know what, fine, this was an incident, it was an oops moment. But this is the rescue team that will be crossing the ferry with you people every day.
Right.
Unaona hapo ndio tumekaa dead cat kwa meza na tukanyamaza.
Naona kabisa.
Sasa itakuwa namna gani?
I have a question for you, Lillian. It's a very simple mechanical question. Because we see pictures and people are not sure whether it's conspiracy or it's an old picture or what it is. Did you cross the ferry this morning, or are you about to cross the ferry?
No, I've not crossed the ferry this morning. Actually, I work on the side of Kilifi.
Okay.
But I cross ferry every weekend because I have to go and visit my family.
Okay, tell me.
Did
you cross the ferry on Sunday?
I can do a video call.
No problem.
Yes, I crossed the ferry on Sunday.
You crossed the ferry on Sunday.
And the ramps were still down.
The ramps were down. All right.
Tell
me something. What was the atmosphere when you were crossing the ferry? The ramp was down. Are there reasons as to why this ramp is down? Number one. Number two, did you hear anybody complaining? The ramp is down. This should be up. What is the situation? Tell me.
Yes. Let me tell you one thing. People complain, especially pedestrians. I thank God that I can cross with a car. Yes, and it can cause a mess, just like what happened to my sister. Do people complain? But do you realize, I can tell you for sure, that the lifestyle on the other side of the ferry is cheaper for most Kenyan Wanjiko. Okay? So what happened is, most of the people cross the ferry every day because they want to get their daily bread on this other side of the island and live on the other side. Now, whether the ramp is down, whether the ramp is deep in the ocean, so long as that vessel is there for us to cross,
and it's moving,
sailboat and cross. It's moving. That's actually the other one. It's moving because we have no other channel to cross. And I can tell you, 80% of Mwananchi, Wanjiko, lives on the other side.
So when people are crossing...
I wish you people, this situation would come in the evening or in the morning and have even a video call because they have a live radio. And then you will see the reality. It's not that it's old pictures. It's not that it's another ferry from Uganda or Tanzania. This is Kenya happening every day.
So now, are people... I've got to ask this though. So when I totally understand that people are crossing the ferry because it's about going to get a job. But when they're crossing, is it kind of like a prayer? Let's get to the other side, or they're not even concerned about that?
Okay, you only make your own prayer as you as a person. Like Lillian, I would say, God, help me, because I know there is no one to rescue me. Okay, but again, one thing I would like with Kenya Ferry, what they are doing is they try as much as possible to control the multitude that run to the ferry. They have barriers. They control people. They say it's enough. Ninyi wengine rudi, and they lock the doors. Fine, but again, as they control that, you still have to fight to pass that barrier because they close the barrier and time is running out and you want to get home. Fine, but my problem is now inside the ferry. Yes, we have gone in. And can I tell you something though? They are still using a string.
A rope.
If a cow can catch that rope, who is a human being and a car? That's now what they use as a barrier inside to separate the ramp with other people where the main vessel is and the ramp, because the ramp is not going up. So now the cat is on the table. The bodies are out. Wambua is happy, gonna have a closure. I'm sorry about that. But who is going to come and tell us, now you know what, fine, this was a oops moment. This is what we are doing. This is the rescue team that will be crossing the ferry every day. This is the machine that will be here. Who is coming to give us a lesson? Guys, okay, this is what you're gonna do. If something happened, this is how you need to do it.
So it's
No
clear
one has
that
ever come and talk to people.
Yeah.
So it's clear that the dead cat in this situation, I mean, yes, the rescue happened and it's fantastic for everybody, but the
Yes,
dead
and it's
cat is
fantastic.
clearly that is taking up
dead-
the attention. But we
We
need
are
to
all on
actually
rescue, we are
focus.
safe.
We need to focus on the safety of people who continue to use this ferry day after day after day.
Yes, very true, very true. And another dead cat is this Kenya Navy who always come to Mashujaa Day na tunaambiwa wanaopita kwa kikosi cha anga ni sijui kina nani. What have they been doing and what are they doing for all those years that wamekuwa wakipita juu Kenya anga, that we have to get people from South Africa to come and sort us out?
Nevi si wa
Can this
Kenya anga
Kenya-
Lilian. Nevi ni wa maji.
Ni wa wapi?
Maji.
Jameni, tu wanapita wakati wa shujaa mimi.
Wale
So I want-
wengine,
okay, what-
but your point is a valid
saying,
one,
Eric,
Lilian.
is
Yeah.
these people, what have they been doing that we have to get people to come and sort us out? But now because the bodies have been retrieved,
They've moved back to their barracks.
we are happy about this.
Thank you very much,
Hii ni
Lilian.
dead cat.
Thank you. Thank you for identifying the dead cat. And also, we'll be discussing the issue of Likoni again this morning. So please keep tuned in.
It's interesting that she says that, as she was discussing, you want to think to yourself, well, the rescue of the retrieval of these of these two Kenyans, obviously beautiful Kenyan souls, them being retrieved is something that definitely gripped the nation, and this was a good thing. But it's inadvertently being used to cover up the fact that the ferry at Likoni is still unsafe and nothing is being done. At this, really,
Yeah.
if we're going to be honest, nothing is being done.
The
People are
accident
still
was
risking their
preventable.
lives day and day and day after day to try to cross over.
The Mtongwe ferry capsized with 400 people in it. Its capacity was 300. There are days when they even went beyond that 400. Now it sank. That's what it did.
It sank.
It sank. Okay? There is nothing stopping these particular ferries that we're speaking of from sinking. That's just the reality. If ships can sink, a ferry can definitely sink.
Oh, yeah.
Now, these ferries don't carry 400 people. No. They exceed 1,000. They go to the realms of 2,000. So, are we waiting for 2,000 people to die for us to now look and say we need to overhaul the ferry services and do blah, 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 and listen to statements being made by chairman of Kenya Ferry Services or the CEO? Really? No.
What
The
I
questions,
keep
like we
saying,
said
one
yesterday,
life lost is one
is
life too
too many.
many.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we have to come to our value for, or even our value for human life. It has to be raised.
True.
It has to be raised. And that's when we'll see change. But still, it doesn't stop us from talking about it.
But also, we must constantly be aware of politicians and people in positions of leadership trying to dead cut us. Giving us a story that is so sweet, the media will lap on it and carry it, put it on the headlines, like you were saying, the other cases of divorce, public divorce cases. It's dead cut strategy for something. If you see, a matter of general interest that's easily understood by the masses, that's being brought in by people in authority, they're probably dead cutting us from another conversation that should be happening that is not happening. And this is how we should be able to identify all the time dead cut strategies. And we'll be having that segment. Every time we notice a dead cut, we'll be raising it. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning. It's 13 minutes after 7.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How, you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelogue is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelogue, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelogue, Jione Kenya.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
In Mombasa, we are on 87.9 FM, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.7 in Malindi. We are live streaming every morning on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, Spice FM KE, www.spicefm.co.ke. Our Twitter handle, Spice FM KE, and our hashtag is Situation Room. In the room, my name is Eric Latif. We have Nduoko and CT Muga.
Eric, you know, this dead cutting,
We want to remove it from the table. Now let's discuss the issues.
No. I'm thinking of which other animal we can bring into the fray. This particular
The
cat.
skunk.
Yeah. Hey.
Skunk ensures that everybody leaves the room.
Yes, but you have to explain skunk, and you have to. Not everybody knows what a skunk looks like. Everyone knows what a cat looks like.
Google is your friend.
Yes.
Skunk.
Yes.
Do you need some help?
No,
Yes.
I was thinking dead dog.
A dead dog.
Yes. But then that might be offensive to some people as well. Somehow cat seems to, people don't take offense at the name cat. Yes. Good thing they didn't say dead black cat. It's just dead
cat, yeah.
So choose the color.
Choose a color.
On Saturday, the Weekend Star had a headline that caught my attention. And the headline was MPs plotting to cut Uhuru veto powers. Now, every time you hear the word veto, it has to do with the United Nations, the UN Security Council, and what the powers that the permanent members within that council have: Russia, USSR, China, etc., UK, France, those countries. And what it means is that any bill, any proposal that is brought to the UN Council, these permanent members actually have the ability to simply, any one of them, not collectively, can say no. In short, they can block it. That's a veto power. And it's absolute. Of course, what is probably not known to other people is that the Security Council does have other members, but they don't have veto powers. Like we've been trying to become members of that particular council.
Yeah.
We will not have the power to block anything. However, when this matter of vetoing comes to the public arena, and by so doing becomes a matter of debate within the country, then you have to ask, what does it mean in our context? Now, what it means and what it revolves around are a series of things that have been happening since 2015. There have been bills that have been brought they've been discussed by Parliament, and they go through stages. Now, before it actually becomes law, there's a stage where it has to go to the President to give assent, meaning he has to sign the bill into law. Now, what has happened is that on these occasions, the President has declined to sign. That's veto, meaning he has blocked the bill from going forward. October 2015, there was the Higher Education Loans Board Amendment Bill 2015. He declined to sign that one. In June 2017, there was a Finance Bill 2017. He refused to sign that one. In September 2019, Parliamentary Service Bill. Maybe I need to explain. I'm going to preface my discussion on this, the Parliamentary Service Bill. Essentially, Parliament has a committee that deals with their employment, public service, like the Public Service
Commission.
Yes, the parliamentary people have their own commission that deals with their matters. But essentially what they wanted to do was to give that particular body powers to more or less determine what MPs earn, to put it in layman's terms. And the President said, no, you cannot decide for yourselves what it is you are going to earn. Essentially, you're going to remove the power of the CRA commercial revenue allocation, and give it to Parliament. Meaning-
SRC as well.
Yes. Meaning give the already government bodies who exist for this particular purpose for the whole nation, but they wanted their segmented into their own little enclave. The president said no. And then there was, in June 2019, there was the Merchant Shipping Amendment Bill. Again, I'm going to explain this. What the MPs wanted was for a bill to state that unless a vessel was wholly owned by Kenyans, or majority owned by Kenyans, it shouldn't apply certain parts of our waters, and especially certain parts of the port. The president said no.
No.
Okay. Then there was the insurance bill of June 2019, same month. This one, Parliament wanted agents to be allowed to collect money on behalf of
On behalf of insurance.
The president once again said, no, that isn't going to happen.
Sounds like kids going to their father. Daddy, I want.
Yes.
Daddy, I want. No.
Yes.
It's just.
And Parliament clearly have not been happy. So they figured, you know something? These powers that the president has, we as Parliament do have, within the Constitution allows us to even check the president. Now, what one doesn't take into account is why it is the executive has those powers. It is the check and balance that you require in a government. That is how the executive checks Parliament. Now, what Parliament is seeking to introduce, if we were to believe that this story as it was published actually speaks of the truth, is that Parliament is then trying to take over the function
That role.
of the executive. Meaning, if you remove the powers from the president, or if you have the powers to remove the powers, it means then you have the powers.
You have the powers.
Absolute power.
Yes, you do. So essentially, Parliament seems to be inviting us to start speculating on the prospect of a parliamentary dictatorship. Because without those veto powers, then it means Parliament can do anything and everything they want. That's really what it means.
How is Parliament hoping to do this? So they want to pass a bill. They want to pass a law
Let's put it this way.
that removes the powers of the president.
Yes. Yes.
This law must go to the president for assent.
This law, I believe, will go to the president. That is the process. So they're asking the president to remove his own veto powers.
Sign here.
On the other hand, now this one requires lawyers to wade in and to tell us. The Constitution does allow Parliament, if it has a certain majority, to take certain actions. Whether they are allowed to remove the president's veto powers through this process, I do not know. But if they were allowed, then they do have a window. But in reality, that would prove very, very tricky given the current arrangement we have in politics.
The handshake curse.
Now this will form yet another element of the curse that was reported today to be the curse of the handshake, because that majority that you require may be a bit tricky.
You won't get it.
I was being too polite. You will simply not get
It's
it.
just won't.
So that won't happen. But what concerned me was the mindset of Parliament. Remember, their role is to actually represent the citizenry of this country
Yep.
and to represent them. How exactly does this action represent the citizenry?
Because they're feeling that their powers are curtailed, probably. You see, as Parliament, listen, we go through a lengthy process, which includes citizen public participation.
When you say we, you're speaking on behalf of Parliament
yes,
now?
I'm speaking as a member of Parliament.
Oh, right,
here.
okay.
The MP for the Situation Room, Eric Latif. Right?
Okay.
Mr. Speaker, may I proceed?
You may proceed.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
So, Mr. Speaker, as representatives of the people, we go through a lengthy process to actually pass a bill.
Yes.
So we go through stages. Stage 1, publication, then we come into the first reading, we go into the second reading, we go through public participation where there are amendments, we come into the committee stage, we come into committee of the whole house, and all members, a majority of members pass this bill. And they have actually agreed that, yes, we have debated this, we have amended it, we have taken it, we have put everything into consideration. We are taking it to the executive, the head of the executive, to actually assent to this. And that's the role of the president. You look at it and you assent to the bill, and it becomes law. It becomes an act of parliament. If you disagree with what you're saying, it's okay. You can actually, it's allowed. You can do that and send to us with a memoranda saying, I disagree with you guys on A, B, C, D, and my reasoning here is this, and that. And those reasons would mostly be on public interest. I think public interest has not been considered here. And I recommend that you discuss or amend A, B, C, D. Now, Parliament already, the law gives us as MPs powers to look at what you've sent, to debate, to accept or to reject. Now, if you reject our bill once, twice, thrice, 4 times, how many bills have you mentioned? You just mentioned more than 5 bills here just now. You've just said since 2015, 6 bills.
Yes.
Pop, 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 pop. This presidency is actually trying to be dictatorial. It is not listening to the will of the people.
Do you think
we represent the people?
Well, because you've mentioned them in rapid succession as you have, does it mean that when the president did not assent to the passage of these bills, that he did it clandestinely and just said no, 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 without actually doing the due diligence and studying what provisions were being brought forward, what suggestions were being made, taking into consideration the amount of research that had been done, the sittings and the discussions and the discourse around these particular bills? Do you think that he would be so as irresponsible as to just say no? I don't think so. I think it's clearly something that was taken into
understand this.
Let's
place against the backdrop of just how many bills go to Parliament and how many bills the president actually does assent to.
Yeah.
It would be dictatorial if these are the only bills that were brought to Parliament. They're not.
They're not.
It would be dictatorial if all the president did was say, no, go away. It brings into this discussion another concept. It's called the pocket veto. The pocket veto is where our constitution allows the president, there is an allowance for the president to do nothing. Doesn't say yes, doesn't say no.
Yep.
Just sits. But this one works when you have a time period within which something must be done. In the US, for instance, it's 10 days. And the pocket veto would work if, for instance, say Congress wasn't in session and those 10 days lapsed. So a certain goal is achieved by the president by inactivity. India also have something similar, though there's a little more complex. The Philippines. Every country in this world has a form of it, where inactivity can actually
assent
itself as a veto. And it's a power that is given to the president for a very good reason. Parliament has to have a check. Just like Parliament is a check to the executive,
it also must be checked in its role as a legislative assembly.
It must be, because some of these bills, when you looked at what they were discussing, the question that came to your mind is, whose interests are these people protecting really? Because it's definitely not the Monanchis. Part of let's go to the insurance bill. Why it was an issue. Remember, insurance companies had complained that they have a problem in that they don't always get the monies owed to them that is collected on their behalf by these agents. That had been the problem. Now, Parliament was saying, let this continue. And the insurance companies have complained. Why was this complaint brought to the fore and in the public debate? Because there was again the issue of taxes. Why are these people not paying what they're... And say, but we can't pay what... Yes, we are owed, we haven't received, and there's a problem. We are forgetting it because there was a debate that took place a while back, but this was the debate. So when people say, go back to what wasn't working, you ask, hey, excuse me.
Why would we
what
do
are you people
that?
talking about?
Yes.
Or this debate about shipping. We do have a national line. So one of our callers mentioned it was called Kenya National Shipping Line. We actually had 3 ships at some point. Where all that story went, it's a subject for another day.
Owned by Kenya.
It was Kenyan owned. It was Kenyans. Okay? The issue was, do we revive this to the point where this the shipping line is what it was? Because there was one ship now brought back into operation, but can we revive it? So then the debate was further and said, but actually, while we're talking about this, there's this new berth that was commissioned. We shouldn't allow ships other than that owned by Kenya. And you're asking, but the port is meant for trade. So why are you not allowing other ships? By the way, they don't berth there for free.
No, they pay. There's
yes.
A fee,
So
pay.
why do you prevent someone from paying you money when they've come all the way from wherever they've come from to actually do business with you? Yes. So these debates raise the question about interests and whose interests our parliamentary members were serving. Now, it is a debate that isn't going to stop now. But that parliament has taken that step. Tells you just how far gone they were in believing that they are power just unto themselves. And a group of people who can actually willy-nilly do whatever it is that they see.
But City,
yes.
Everything that you're saying, yes, like you keep saying, is very valid. However, if the president feels that he needs to keep, sending back, when you send 5 bills, 6 bills in 6 years, That means every year you're basically just sending, and these are not small-time bills. These are, bills which have an impact. The Parliamentary Service Commission bill may be the one that you can come and argue that this is looking at after their own interests. But the others are not looking at after MPs' own interests. These are bills that MPs have gone through. They have discussed everything possible. And the executive is not absent in this. The executive has a window to actually come and contribute to this bill. So if you have a window to come and contribute to this bill when it's going through the process of Parliament, and you didn't, and now you wait until we have done all that work and come and tell us, no, go and amend ABCD. That's wrong.
Well, he's not making these amendments, or he's not making these suggestions for amendments on his own.
He isn't.
He's not making them on his own.
He's taking advice.
He's obviously surrounded by a team of individuals who are giving advice on what needs to be done.
And that team
Yes, that team was there, but then they are able to look at it at a more granular level later on when it comes. There's a reason why it has to go back to them. As members of the executive, there's a reason why it has to go back to them. For them to go through it with a fine-tooth comb and say they don't shut it down fully and say never bring this back to my desk again. Essentially, what they do is they go through it with a fine-tooth comb and they say we found loopholes here, here, and here. We found potential danger spots here, here, and here. Go back, fix it, and then bring it back. They're not throwing it out the window, never for it to be seen again. They're just saying go and give it a better look, dress it up a little bit better, and bring it back, and then we can see what we can do it. Don't you think they realize that it's for the good of the country for these bills to be passed? They understand and they realize that this is the work of parliamentarians.
The point I'm making, is the fact that this is, while it's going through that whole process of debate in Parliament, there's a window for the executive to actually come and input into this bill. There's a window for it. There's a window for these advisors to the president to actually input into that bill.
But there's also a provision. To allow members of parliament to do their job.
Yes,
that's what is being provided for at that time.
One of those
do
things
your
of
job
doing
and
their
then
job
bring it
is
to us and let's see what we can do.
Taking input from other people. Other people include advisors to the president.
Eric,
they should be able to come and play in. Don't wait until the very end and come and tell us. And just throw a span in the works all the time. I don't think
it's throwing the span in the works, Eric, because if you look at 2015, there were 62 bills brought to Parliament.
In 2015?
Yes, in 2019 there were 50 so far. We're talking about a total of 112 bills. Now, you tell me, and we're discussing how many bills? 6. How is it unfair? How? Look at the numbers.
Okay,
I haven't talked about 2016. I haven't talked about 2017. I haven't talked about 2018. I'm giving an example of when they started and where we are currently. There are so many bills that go through Parliament, and there are so many bills that the President assents to. They're in the papers, they don't hit headlines, they just pass. It's just a process that Parliament goes through all the time.
We should
look at part of what they do.
We should look at those bills. Where's the origin of those bills? And look at the other bills that pass. What's the origin of those bills that pass? There are many bills that are actually sponsored by government that come into Parliament for debate, and they become law. If government has actually sponsored a bill, obviously the President will assent to it. If it's a private member's
instituted.
It obvious?
It's stated so.
It's stated so.
No.
It's stated so, but yes, you would expect
unless Parliament has gone and put in an amendment that the executive did not want. So that's when they'll come back and say, no, please amend this. But if you look at those bills that have actually originated from Parliament, from members in Parliament, that go into all the way to the president feels, I should have started this. You go and amend this, go and amend this and the other.
Do you think that such an irresponsible sentiment would play out when it comes to something as vital and as critical and crucial as passing bills for the development of this company? That somebody would at a whim, the executive would at a whim say, well, I really don't feel like, so I'm not going to pass it.
They actually are very diplomatic about it. They don't say, I don't feel like. They'll come up with, all those amendments. Please, the memorandum will be very well detailed.
But like I said, this is not something that they would toss out the window for eternity. It's something that we say, go back, comb through it, do a little bit better, and then bring it back to us.
It's basically the executive saying that if we haven't sent this bill to you, don't bring it to us.
Eric, that argument would hold water if 50% of the bills that we spoke of
had not been passed.
Had received the treatment you're saying.
Yes.
This is barely 5%.
But those 5%, what's the origin of those bills?
You're changing the discussion.
This is the Situation Room, 0719-012-600. Should Parliament, curtail the President's veto power? on bills. It's 27 minutes to 8 o'clock.
24/7 around the world, non-stop.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Okay, as we want to see how the road
You're
dey look
listening
this
to
morning,
Spice
e be like
FM.
Thika Road not they move, nothing they pass. Wayaki way, jam dey everywhere. Thika Road too. Then they talk say, as you want reach Garden City, can't enter city center. You not fit pass. You not waka go anywhere today. I been don't tell you from 6:30 say Mombasa Road go look like trouble. Now trouble we just they see everywhere. Cabana Sote you reach Airtel, you know they go anywhere today. Mombasa Road, they say from Simba Cement. I be waiting then they call them. Simba Cement. As you try come out, they reach past Airtel, enter Nyayo Stadium roundabout. Then say una not go pass today. Una for sleep for house because Tuesday people don't come up from their house. Everybody want jam enter road. You want enter city center. All of una ba? Sorry, you know they go anywhere today. Sorry. Sit down for house. Sit down for there. Ashesa, if you call Erico 0719-016-200, tell and say where you don't stick. Say you not fit pass. He go help you.
Was Erica Road?
I tell them say make them call you if they enter jam.
Call me,
Make them call you if they enter jam. You go tell them how they fit come out.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
94.4 in Nairobi. We are also in Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi. Good morning. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. 23 minutes to 8 o'clock. In the room, my name is Eric Latif, Siti Muga, and Ndu Oko are here. So, Siti Muga is basically quoting a story that appeared in the weekend papers, the Weekend Star.
Yes.
And where apparently parliamentarians are trying to do what?
They are trying to cut Uhuru's veto powers, and you were trying to change the topic. That's when we went out to listen to.
I was dead cutting.
Yes,
we went to Niger.
Yes, and at this rate, I am going to learn pidgin really fast, and before you know it, I will be prefacing,
go be talking,
and I will be owing myself into pidgin very soon. Okay,
okay. What do you say? Okay, Ngwa.
Ngwa is let's go. Carry on.
Ngwa.
Twende kazi.
Ngwa City.
All right, let me ngwa. Eric, when I say you change the topic, what you are trying to tell me is that when we look at the bills, we should determine the origin. For instance, if it's a private member's bill, are you trying to suggest that it would be different from a bill that clearly is sponsored by the government? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes.
How?
Yes, I
A
would.
bill is a bill is a bill.
Look, we see the finance bills, right? The ones after the budget. Parliament really works hard to... No. The executive works hard to ensure that those bills pass. Parliament would try to go and... we saw what was happening in this particular one. The Senate and the National Assembly were disagreeing, and the president would come in and weigh in on this matter publicly and say, come on, guys, pass this bill, because this is how much money we have. I'm going to assent to the money that we have. If you see bills that have emanated from the executive, they go into Parliament, they will be discussed in Parliament, they will have back and forth in Parliament, and when they go back to the executive, the president assents to them pretty fast. In fact, it is passed by the National Assembly today. By the end of the week, the president has assent. We see those pictures. The AG, the leader of majority, the speaker of the house, whichever house passed it. We see all of them. The leader of minority there, the solicitor general, standing there as the president assents to the bill. If it's a private member's bill, and those ones that you've mentioned, those 6, I bet you, if you look at those 6 bills, many of them, if not all, are going to be private members' bill, which means that they emanated from Parliament itself. Because the executive feels we were not creative enough to think of this kind of law, they start going to fight it. And this is what we are saying.
No. That's what you are saying.
No.
I'm not with you on that one. Sorry.
We as a people.
Oh, we as the people.
We as the people, we are
We
saying.
as the people.
Oh, now you've changed. You're no longer a member of Parliament.
But
now
I'm a
you
representative of the people.
Oh, right. You're still representing.
Yeah, an MP doesn't speak for himself.
Oh,
We-
ever. All right.
No.
Got it.
We as the people are saying that, look, we need to reset our relationship with the executive. If we are going to be coming up with bills, we discuss these bills. We have, stages. There are various stages of this that this bill goes through. And if we've gone all the way to passing the bill in the assembly, we take it to the executive, and the executive sends it back to us with some, memoranda here saying amend this, amend the other. Look, your job is not to amend, your job is to pass. We, the people, have actually discussed this bill. We, the people, have agreed that this is a law that serves the people of Kenya. This is a law that serves the Republic of Kenya. Pass it. We've passed it. Then you go and amend and send to it. If you have any amendments, then tell us, 1, 2, 3 amendments once in a while. But when you notice a pattern that whenever we originate a bill, you are going to kill it, we have to reset this relationship.
But if you argue that the executive does due diligence to ensure that the bills that they sponsor sail through,
And that's one of the reasons why they are there.
yes, could we then not argue that perhaps these individuals don't do due diligence, and that is why their bills don't sail through?
The individuals in Parliament.
Well, if it is
All
a private
300
member,
plus.
Chief, these are 6 bills, 6
Yes.
over a period of 4 years.
Yes, years.
And
Okay.
all the others that have passed, they've done due diligence.
And
But
are you
this
suggesting
this
that all the
6
ones
So what
which
do you
passed-
think? So
This
can you see
6
something? Can you see something specific that has changed in the manner in which these bills were dealt with that would then make you say that this was different? These 6 particular bills were different because of 1, 2, 3. And I don't think that we want to, set a precedent where we say that something was done right or something was not done right or something went amiss, and so these bills were not passed for a particular thing or another. Is there a difference between the discourse around, or the way in which the process through which this bill then was rejected at certain levels, and others that were passed? For example, the due diligence was done, the same
But
process
by
was
the way-
carried out. Was there something different in the way in which this was organized? That's
Do
the only way we can now then say something was wrong with this.
No, even as Eric is saying what he's saying, all these bills that come to Parliament, there has to be a member of Parliament who brings it to the floor of Parliament.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I want to ask him, so how do you distinguish it? How do you determine this is a private member's bill and this is a
And this
government
is a
bill? How
government-
do you distinguish it when it's only members of Parliament who bring these bills to Parliament? How do you distinguish it?
You see, if it's coming from the leader of majority, you know where it's come from.
No, leader of the majority is a member of Parliament.
Yes.
So how certain are you? Are you saying that the leader of majority cannot bring a motion, cannot bring a bill to Parliament that has nothing to do with the executive directly? Is that what you're saying?
You're the one now who's introducing a different story here.
Of course I am.
The different story here is that you're trying to, divert attention. You're dead cutting. You're trying to tell us that because this bill, all the bills are brought by members of parliament, then all bills are equal. We know they are not.
I am trying to tell you to show us the difference.
We know they are not.
I am only saying, tell us the difference.
If an MP sits with his constituents, and the constituents come and tell him or her that this is what we feel, and we want you to go and take this bill to Parliament and convince your fellow MPs to pass this bill because we feel that this is a law that we need. That MP, that is MP C.T. Muga for whatever constituency, goes into the National Assembly, introduces the bill, and members will discuss that bill. There are very many cases where you see elements of the executive trying to fight back, to push back against that bill because they feel that this is not going to work well for us. The executive is not going to work well for us. And we know this. I mean, we're not talking about things that are happening in Jupiter, like you keep saying. These are not extraterrestrial stuff. This is stuff that happens in this country. And you see that happen all the time when the executive is not happy about a bill, but you can see MPs pushing and saying, let's discuss this bill. Let's actually go through this. This is a good bill. This has is going to have a huge impact. Executive tries to, even talk to its members to abscond from voting from this bill, to abstain from the bill, or being absent when the bill is being debated or voted for. But still, it sails through. They still have one safety net called the presidential signature. We need to discuss that. We need to reset this arrangement.
I don't think that these bills are abandoned or sent back for amendment at whim. There are very many things that are taken into consideration. And I think that was clear when I talked about the fact that he's surrounded by a committee who sits with him, a committee of would-be experts who sit with him as the executive and says, 1, 2, 3, we cannot accept. We've gone through this. We've combed through it. And we say, this is something that you need to look at again and then bring it back. It's not completely tossed out the window. It said, go back and discuss it even further. Sure, it might take time, but then again, we need to look at the number. We're looking at 6 bills in 4 years, almost 5 years. It's not something that's done at will or at a whim, really, and saying, no, we're not going to do this just because today I'm not feeling like it. We got to go beyond feelings and say yes. It's saying go through it properly so that we do it right from the beginning.
These are examples that City has given. 0719-012-600. Those 6 bills, those are just examples that City has given. 0719-012-600. I want to open up the phone lines. Do you think it's right for MPs to, curtail or to cut the president's veto powers when it comes to assenting to bills? Is it right? Is it wrong? City is saying this takes us to the realm of parliamentary dictatorship, where parliament discusses and parliament has no checks. The president must assent to all bills. Is this the case? Do you think that is the case, or do you think it's a case of also the presidency, the executive, actually also trying to usurp the powers of the legislature by saying, "I want you to amend A, B, C, D every time"? It's a back and forth.
Eric, that assertion is particularly interesting. We have a constitution, and everything I've discussed is within the boundaries of our constitution. The president isn't doing something that the constitution doesn't allow him to do.
Yes.
So how is it then that what you are trying to say is happening can happen when everything is within the bounds of law?
Right, exactly. And they knew when these bills, the whole process of when these bills were taken before the floor, when there was the, what's the term that we look preponderant? What is
with the debate?
It's brought forth, it's debated, it's going for the second round, third round, whatever, and then it is now put down. They knew that it would get to the seat of the executive. They know that it is going to go further. So they know it's 50-50. There's a possibility that it will be taken in. There's a possibility that it will be sent back to you for amendment. They knew this before. It doesn't mean that because you've gone through the series of debate and the process of debate and amendment, etc., that it will be accepted by virtue of the fact that you did the due diligence. They're already aware beforehand that there's a possibility that it would be shut down. So when that happens, I say take it with a pinch of salt, go back, do the due diligence, and then bring it forward once again, because you are aware that this is a process that must be seen through.
Eric, you can take as much time as you want to think about things.
Yeah, think about it. Let it go down just a little bit.
To look for more than one cut, because one cut isn't going to do it. look for some 3 cards.
What is it
then
that
bring
you're saying, City? What you're saying that this is going to introduce us to a parliamentary dictatorship?
It is.
Why?
Because
Why? Parliament, by passing this law,
If
also, if
you
you want us to
remove the
argue, in
veto
that
powers,
basic way, if you want us to argue, by passing this law, Parliament will still be playing its role,
which is,
passing laws.
yes, but this particular law,
And then you will see the president not assenting to that law.
remember I said we need lawyers probably who understand the Constitution to wade in here and probably tell us what the Constitution allows for, because I am not certain about it. What I do know for a fact is this. If the law allows just by a majority of 2/3, the president they don't require the president's assent on that one.
Right.
Yes. Now, if you remember, we touched on this matter of impeachment some times back. Now, I do not think that if Parliament were to seek to impeach the president, that they would require his assent. No.
No.
So,
In that case,
so,
no.
so if I were, no, I don't think so. So if I were to go by this, I would assume, therefore, that the Constitution allows for certain activities within Parliament that don't necessarily require the president's assent, because it may actually be against the president himself. So you cannot ask someone permission to throw him out of his job.
Out of his job.
No, you cannot do that.
No, you can't.
Even there, when MPs are actually discussing this, sometimes we are very quick to look at MPs and think the worst of them. But maybe we shouldn't.
Give me an example of when we think the worst of MPs.
Today,
Look,
in this particular one, in this particular move,
Eric?
the Parliament is feeling aggrieved. And Parliament is saying, let's relook at this relationship. Let's relook at how we do our work.
let's paint a picture here. How many members of Parliament do we have? 290?
Plus.
Plus? Right? Okay.
290 constituencies.
When
Plus
a bill...
45 woman reps. Plus nominated.
Plus. All right. Principle. Okay. When the process of bill discussion is taking place, what is the majority, or what is the minimum number of MPs that are needed on the floor of the House to have these discussions? Do we know? 50%, 30%? What is the minimum number of MPs that must be on the floor of the House?
The minimum threshold.
Yes, the threshold. Do we know what those numbers
It
are?
depends on the bills.
All right, being a newsman, you know also that many times when we've seen the discussion of these bills being done in Parliament, the numbers that we see in the House are wanting, except when it is a particular bill that is going to affect, for example, the payment of members of Parliament's salary, etc., or the increase in their allowances and other things like this. Now, there's not so much clamor, there's not so much interest when it has to do with, not so important things like, the basic running of the country. When things like that come into play, we don't see as much interest on the floor of the House. It's interesting to note, though, that when certain bills come into play, the majority of the House is on the floor.
Let me deflect that by taking a call.
It's getting hot, isn't it?
Good morning, Lydia. How are you?
Good morning, Spice FM. Thank you for your good program.
Thank you.
I wanted to contribute to say that we have 400 plus MPs, but why does the Parliament look almost empty most of the time? And plus, when it is Ababu Nyamamba who mentioned that on a certain day all the MPs crowd into one room to collect millions to vote against or to vote for. Why do the MPs have to be bribed to vote? Where are their brains? And then it just goes on and on and on. And then when Ababu Nyamamba was joined into elections for his party, men in black came and scuttled the ballot papers. Where is law from the law people? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lydia.
She does have a point. Because really,
where
when you have, where are they when these important bills that we're talking about are being discussed in Parliament? Where are they? That you think would gain or would bear some kind of weight for the general running of the company,
when you're watching,
the country rather.
When you're watching Parliament in maybe the Assembly on the floor, there's a lot of work that also happens in committees. And this particular style of Parliament that we have, work is done in committees. So there's a lot of work that's actually done by committee. So when it's coming to the floor of the House, it's for all members to contribute. Have they contributed to this in the committee?
Eric exactly right, because the matter we're discussing was actually brought to the fore by the chairman of the Parliamentary Constitution Implementation Oversight Committee, CIOC. This gentleman also happens to be the MP for a wonderful place called Ndaragwa.
Jeremiah Kioni.
Yes, remember this man during the last election, he and one Mr. Musalia Mudavadi had partnered to vie for...
This man would have been in the executive.
This man would have been a deputy president had he and Musalia succeeded. So it was a committee that is actually mandated by law to look into matters of this nature. They are the ones who brought this matter up. So I am merely supporting the fact that it is true. Committees.
And CIOC, the Constitution Implementation Oversight Committee, is not just a simple committee. It's actually a committee that looks at our constitution, how we're implementing it, what's working, what's not working.
That's fine. Even if it is the big brother of committees, that's fine.
When they discuss this, they're actually talking about from that point of, let's look at what was the spirit and law of this constitution. What is it that we're talking about? Now, let's look at how the executive is dealing with the legislature when it comes to the legislature doing its work.
So are you saying that because they're looking into the business of how the executive and legislature does its work, and then had this one particular bill, which would then come about to talk about this kind of behavior and amend ways in which this behavior was exercised, that it was shut down? Is that what you're saying? Because of the fact that it was looking to their behavior, that's the reason why it was shut down, as opposed to the executive actually doing its due diligence to make sure that things are actually done right.
What CIOC is saying is, let's look at how these bills actually go, right? There are very many instances where Parliament has passed a law, Parliament has passed a bill, it has gone to the President, and the President has sent it back to us and said, amend A, B, C, D. Now, telling us to amend A, B, C, D is basically telling us, you guys didn't think. And yet, we are sure that throughout those stages of taking this bill through, we thought there was a first reading, there was a second reading, there was a committee stage, there was a final reading, the committee of the whole house. These are processes that are actually anchored in law, and the reason why there are so many, there are many process stages is so that we ensure that due diligence is done,
and the answers that they were
given,
and the prerogative of the committee that then sat as the executive also is anchored in law in terms of the answer that they gave, giving them the mandate to then go back and look at the work that they did or did not do in this case. And if they find that the work that they did was authentic and that it carried a serious weight of integrity, then they would not have a problem with it. Going back and saying, hey guys, can we actually tweak this a little bit better? Can we see how we can make it really give us the full results that we are seeking for? Let's put it back together and let's take it back. You really believe in what it is that you're doing? If it's brought back 10 times, you take it back 11.
Let me pick another call. This is Okello calling in from Mombasa. Good morning, Okello.
Yes, how are you this morning, guys?
Good morning, Mr. Okello. How are you today?
Very fine, thank you. How are you?
Very well.
Great. I hope it is not as dry as it is here.
Where is it dry?
You mean there's no rain in Mombasa?
It rained yesterday only, okay.
Well, that's good enough.
It's a bit good. Yeah. Well, anyway, I think the Constitution has a very delicate balance of checks and balances. And the reason for that is that no constitutional body is supposed to exercise its powers arbitrarily. So, for example, if the legislature legislates, there should be a check and balance. If the executive performs its power, there should be a check and balance. And if the judiciary performs its power, there should be a check and balance. So this is what this is. Because when a legislature legislates, they are supposed to pass their bill by a 50% majority, blah, blah, blah. When it goes to the president, he can veto it. If Parliament does not agree with that veto, they can override that veto by a two-third majority. So for them to be complaining shows that they're not following
due process.
They are not following due process. Because if they really felt strongly about whatever it is they want to pass, etc., then they would garner a 2/3 majority
Absolutely.
and pass the bill.
Absolutely.
Now, many times when the president asks or requests for an amendment, you will see that it is because maybe the parliamentarians did not consider certain constitutional issues. Because you might pass a law, and when it goes to the courts declare that law unconstitutional. So the president must check, is this constitutional? The president must check, does this go with government policy? Because laws don't come out of anywhere. Laws come out of policy. Actually, if you look at Article 10 of the Constitution, that's exactly what it says.
Yeah.
So there's that check and balance. And even for the judiciary, you would say they have their checks and balances in the sense that if they declare a law to be unconstitutional out of their whim, then somebody can take them through the process of removal. It's not the judiciary that takes them through the process of removal. It's the president who appoints the people who are going to take them to. Yeah, and same to the executive. If the executive performs an action, then Parliament oversights that action, so that the executive is not just going to perform something.
Yeah.
And Parliament has not oversighted it. So this is
It's about checks and balances.
And if you interfere with them, then you might, as CT says, entrench parliamentary democracy. I mean, parliamentary
Dictatorship. It was democracy,
Yeah.
but dictatorship. We'll check
Mr. Okello,
dictatorship.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Okello. Have a good morning. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We have 0719-012-600 as our phone line. Also, you can comment on Facebook, where we are live streaming Spice FM KE on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. And also, we are live streaming on YouTube, Spice FM KE. If you'd like to tag us on hashtag Situation Room on our Twitter handle, Spice FM KE. Good morning. It's 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Try. Una never learn. I tell una make una enter Thika Road. Una don't enter join Thika Road. You not they move. Una not they go anywhere. You not go enter town. Make you stay for house. Wait until that kind 9:30 like this. Now una fit enter town. Make una say you want enter CBD. Ngwano, we want enter Ngong Road. It they move. It they clear. As you reach that kind St. Hannah School there, as you they reach Adams Arcade, not too bad. But if you want enter town, it go cause you some wahala. As you want leave Thika Road, now join Mutaiga, wahala day small. Mombasa Road, then talk say wahala day from Syokimau all the way enter town. So I don't tell una say make una no enter road today. Una no one hear me. Tuesday, 15th October, as you talk and say half months don't reach, wahala day everywhere. Na so it be 0719-012-600.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
A very good morning to you. It's 2 minutes past 8 o'clock. This is the Situation Room on Spice FM 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.7 in Malindi. In the Situation Room this morning, my name is Eric Latif. We have CT Muga, Ndu Oko, and now we are joined by government spokesman, Colonel retired Cyrus Oguna. Good morning, Colonel. Karibu sana to the Situation Room. Now, a couple of things have happened in the last, couple of weeks as well. And that's why we have chosen to invite you here this morning, because we'd like to discuss the situation down at Likoni. And we had a caller this morning her name is Lillian, and she was telling us, we saw an operation, yes, by the Kenya Navy. We saw they did a good job, and they made us feel so good because the Navy they came in and they took charge of the operation, and they were able to retrieve the car plus the 2 bodies. But we've forgotten that there was an accident that happened here in the first place. Something that should not have happened actually happened in the first place. And now we're here to discuss why that happened. But before we even go there, so let's first talk about you and your role as government spokesman, right?
Yes.
So the first time we saw you, of course, was when KDF was sent to Somalia.
Yeah.
And you were very eloquent in telling us the progress of our soldiers. At the moment when they went to Kismayu, you were visibly happy, when you were saying our soldiers are there, and we have had our CDF also visiting our troops there. And now you have been, is this a promotion? Can we call it a promotion? Can we call it, is it a lateral movement?
Lateral move.
You're speaking for the entire government, not just the military.
It's just another appointment, like any other. As a civil servant, you are given positions and appointments, and you must accept them. Yes.
Now, this is also those ones where the management reserves the right to reassign you duties as they deem fit.
If you're given duties and it's a government appointment, and you're a civil servant, like I have always been, then you must accept such appointments. So this is exactly what happens.
So what do you do now as government spokesman?
My role essentially is to communicate about government programs and projects, including initiatives to the public, and therefore I'm actually the link person between the government and the public. Yes.
Meaning what? Spin doctor?
Not really. I think this is perhaps a misnomer that most people would want to believe that a government must, in certain situations, conduct psychological operations on its own people.
You were about to say warfare.
Psychological operations, but we don't do that. Actually, a government should never do that. So my role actually is to communicate facts to the public and to make the public aware that this is what the government is doing for them, and this is where the tax that they pay is put in by the government. Yes.
So are you saying that your duty involves preempting something that the public may perhaps feel needs to be addressed, or do you only speak about things that have happened and you're giving a government response to?
No. A couple of times before something happens, the public need to be educated about what the government plans to do before it is done. So that's part of my responsibility. A few times, you cannot talk to the public at one go and expect everybody to hear. So it's something keep on doing before the project and the programs are initiated, and even during the time when they're initiated, even after they have been initiated. So basically it's about communicating and informing and educating the public and making the public aware about what their government is doing for them. And also getting feedback from them as well.
I was going to ask, how do you then deal with what the public wants to know? If they have questions, is this communication two-way traffic, or is it information that we get from you? Then what happens when we need information from the government?
Yes. You have several avenues. One of the avenues that you can be able to use is normally we have got press conferences. We go to the public, public forums, community forums. So during such situations, we get from the public what they wish to know from the government. But the other platforms available that we are actually on, we've got several accounts that can be used to be able to get the heartbeat of the nation, what they want to hear from the government, and we've always responded to such.
You're using social media as well.
Yeah, we are.
What's your Twitter handle?
My Twitter handle.
So everybody can follow you this morning. Give you
spokesperson @spokesperson GOK.
At spokesperson GOK, that's the Twitter handle for the government spokesman. Colonel, do you have sufficient power to actually get information from all government departments?
Yes, I do.
So for instance, I'm coming to you and I'm asking about something in the Ministry of Labor, right? I'd expect that then you would go to the Ministry of Labor and say, I need information on ABCD so that I can relay to the public.
Maybe let me just give a bit of reorganization that has taken place in the government so that people can be able to understand. I am actually a member of a committee, the committee that comprises permanent secretaries. And they're actually the technical people within every ministry. And therefore, being a member of that committee allows me the latitude and even the opportunity to get information firsthand. But also, should there be a time when I want information from any ministry, because of being a member and the people who are the custodian of such information are the PSS, and I'm a member of that committee. And therefore, it makes it easy for me to get any information I want in any ministry, any agency, or any department.
Unlike in the military, where there are very many questions that we would ask you, and you tell us, I cannot tell you this because this would compromise operational. What was it? What are those terms again? Just operational.
National security.
Yeah, or would compromise the operations and national security. In your position now, is there information that you cannot give us?
Yes, I would. Not everything would be. Of course, I would weigh out the question, try to understand what would be the implication. Because a few times you may ask for information that in my own consideration may compromise, the integrity of what the government plans to do.
Right.
So before I give it out, perhaps sometimes may want not to give it out before that action is undertaken. So I would be able to, weigh out and ask myself what could go wrong, if this information given out too early. So yes, there are certain times that I may find a way in which not to say no, but also not to give out.
Right.
Do you have examples of instances where you could actually say, like what you've been saying, there was this situation where I couldn't comment on this because this is what was really at play. I can talk about it now, but then I couldn't.
No, I cannot do that.
Even now. Even now you can't tell us that.
Over the last couple of weeks, we've had quite a number of incidents where we felt that, really, because you've just talked of civic education as one of the examples that you've given in terms of information being passed out from the government to the people of Kenya. We've seen a number of times where we felt that proper civic education could have taken place from the side of the government. And that just didn't happen. And when we know that didn't happen because people still had so many questions about how a process would play out, what would happen. Whereas we felt that the government had a unique opportunity to share that information, or at least take on something and share the information with people. How exactly does civic education work from the side of the government, so people to really understand, how do I learn about these processes? Where do I go to? Because we feel that there are many times where it was wanting in terms of how the information was shared by the government. One glaring example would be that of the census. Until the last moment, nobody really knew what was happening. Even until when people were being counted, nobody really knew what was happening. Nobody really knew what the information was for. You can imagine until now, there are many people who are counted in Kenya and don't even know what that information would be used for by the government. And then you have a lot of conspiracy coming out because people don't know why this information is being taken. Huduma number, again, is one of them. So then how does that work in terms of civic education for people?
Thank you for that question. I must say that we have perhaps not done, as good as we should as a government, and we're actually learning as we go forward, and that is because previously information was not necessarily centralized. That there's so many, spaces where information is coming through, from different, individuals, different institutions, different departments, and in that case, or in that kind of a situation, what would happen is that there's a lot of noise. So a lot of information that may be important is lost.
Right.
So the new system that the government is adopting is whereby information is channeled through almost not one source, because again, one source may not be sufficient enough to inform the entire public. But I'll explain how the government currently operates. But one thing that we also trying to do as a government right now that is coming out of the experience of census and even Huduma number is that we have not been able to incorporate communication in planning. We sometimes would plan and only think about operation much later. So we are trying, we're playing that, game of catching up.
At that point,
trying to catch up.
And it's evident.
It's clear. So that is what we're trying to move away from, so that even as we're planning for Huduma number, we're not planning for census or any other project, major project, that during the planning stage, communication is incorporated, so it becomes part and parcel of the entire planning process. We have not done so well there, but as we move forward, is an area that we are working on very, very closely, and we expect to be
So I
do a
take
lot
it this
better.
is something that you are spearheading yourself to
Not
ensure that all
necessarily
other
me. I would
departments
not say the-
understand
not
the
me
importance.
per se, but I would say that the government, there is a reawakening in government that communication is important to everything that the government has to do.
Yeah.
You know, because again, it's a constitutional requirement that the people must be informed at all times. So anything that the government needs to do or wants to do, it is important and it's imperative that it is to be taken to the people first, and then maybe get their feedback, and from there now, some action can be taken. So it's an area that we are working on, and we expect to do much better as we move forward.
How would you deal then in the future? Because it's obviously something that needs to be taken into consideration. How would you then deal in the future? Because then, because of a past experience, you will have people who will take a non-participatory stance in the future. Because the last time they were not given adequate information, or they did not have the information that they needed to move forward. How will you deal then with those blocks of people? Because they do exist who have now
Yeah, they
said,
will always be
I
there.
will not
There
participate.
will always be doubting Thomases, even in everything that human beings do.
Yeah.
And we can't force somebody to take up information. We'll do what we can. For those who will accept, there are those who will not. But ours is to ensure that a critical mass of the population get the information that is required. Ours is to ensure that we have all these platforms and all these avenues to be able to communicate and also get feedback. If we've gotten a critical mass, so that be it. But we cannot force you
to receive
information if you do not want.
You can only lead me to water, because you can't force me to drink.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
But we can bring the water to you. That is the information. You may choose not to drink it. You may choose not to take it up, but it is right in front of you.
You may choose to just take a sip, and that's enough, or you may
Yes.
choose to take the entire glass. It's important that Colonel, you're saying this, because in this show we've actually pointed out over various days instances where we felt that the government failed in communicating, in implementation of projects. Like Ndu has said, we have got those instances of the census, the Huduma number, and then we compared, for example, with what the CBK did the other day with the demonetization program, and we said, look,
It's possible.
it's possible. It's actually doable.
But again, let's also not mix issues here. I mean, where money matters are involved, everybody is interested.
Everybody knows.
Everybody wants to be, to be seen to be
Apart
interested.
from the people who are
But then,
grazing in Tana River.
honestly, let me tell you, even census was not that bad. Trust me. We tried, we did what perhaps was possible at the time. Maybe did not have sufficient time to do it, right? But trust me, if it was money issues within the period that we did the census, everybody would have picked it up. So really, again, depends on what area, interests
It depends
you.
on the context.
But all of us really are interested in money issues, or money matters.
We
And
are.
I trust you are.
But let me just ask the question. It is true we are all interested in money matters, but there are matters that are of concern to the nation, a census being one such matter. If we want to create, say, a dry port in Naivasha being one other such matter, the public may not appear to have an interest, but it will affect their lives. So
I agree.
shouldn't the government then take a proactive position and ensure that, despite the fact that they may not particularly be interested, to ensure that everything that could possibly be done is done to get them to understand the importance of this particular activity?
Yes, that is true.
Okay, I'm actually leading somewhere here.
I understand. I know where you're leading to. You do. I know where you're leading to.
Yes.
Yes. And that's exactly what the government has been trying to do, to ensure
Yes.
that everybody is aware, not just the dry port in Naivasha, but even
Yes.
other, like for instance, we're talking about special economic zones
Yes.
around the country.
Yes,
You
the
know,
port in Lamu.
the port in Lamu.
Yes.
Those are issues that, trust me, I'll give an example now that you mentioned the port in Lamu. That even civic awareness to inform the public around Lamu, for instance, about that port was done. Not once, not twice, 55 different times. That there were, community forums that were, called, and people were invited, and people were told about it and the importance about the port and how that port is going to affect their lives. So a few times there are those who are informed about something, and because they are, there's always, like we say in economics, the hidden hand in the market or the market forces. So we must also accept that there are issues and programs that when a government tries to communicate, there's always a hidden hand somewhere, people wanting to throw in the spanners.
It's called resistance.
So
And
you
also
understand.
others, they come and twist the information.
It is the information. But Lamu Port, again, is a project that has got other existential issues that perhaps, from a casual observer, may not be able to understand those intricacies. But if you look at it critically, why the Lamu Port is such an important infrastructure, not just for Kenya, not just for East Africa, but if you look at it from an African point of view, then you realize that it may not make other people happy. I will not say who these people are, but because it will not make them happy, they must find a way by which they must try
And
to throw the
discredit
span
it,
in
to
the
discredit
works.
it.
So how do you go about that?
Yeah.
Look for a few activists and inform them that there was no public participation, even when there was. So what I'm asking is that, there'll always be not those naysayers in every situation, especially when a government is involved.
Actually, there are people whose livelihood is derived from finding mistakes within government.
Yes, precisely.
Where I was going with this was, you are sort of like the go-to person when the government wants to communicate to the people. Now, it means you are privy to information that perhaps other people, even among the people you meet, may not be privy to. What role do you play in taking information from the public to these people, so that when they make the decision they do in their various departments or various ministries, that they make informed? Because from your position, you are clearly well informed. But not all members of that committee that you belong to may be as informed as you.
That committee is very informed. Trust me. Perhaps the only difference is that because I talk to the people, I go to the ground.
And
but also, they're also, coming from different counties, different regions. I go to every part of this country. When I want to perhaps talk about a certain government project, maybe, a themed kind of, approach. So I would look at, if this is the theme for this week, for instance, where would it be better received? You understand? So I'll go to that region, let's say that county, but from there I'm going to get feedback. So some of the things I'm going to get from there may not, something that all these members may be privy to.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yep.
So in that context, yes, I'm perhaps better placed to know the heartbeat of the nation
and inform the
and
others.
informed about what the grassroots, is feeling like. Yeah. So the committee that I am a member to, therefore, would benefit from that because of being a member. I must communicate the same to them.
Okay.
Colonel Loguna, you defended that committee well, but and I'm happy. I'd be glad to be in your committee where you belong to. But if I were to look at, say, the issues that have happened at Likoni recently, I'm talking now as a member of the public. Your coming in quietened the hearts of people because people felt, the government has now taken an interest and we are hearing what the government thinks. Now, you have a PS in the Ministry of Transport. You have people under him. You have a minister. You have a CEO in charge of the ferry. From the public perspective, those people are fumbling all over the landscape.
Through and through.
And making a situation even worse. Your presence quietened it. Why must you come in to quieten it? And all these people are in your committee and they are informed and they know.
They're in touch.
Yes, and they know what to do. Why did they have to bring you in to do that?
Even before we go to Likoni, I know we are going to go to about, to Precious Talent.
Oh, we're heading there.
I know
We'll
you're
go
heading
there,
there.
yes.
So let me preempt that. You see, it is my job.
Yes.
Everybody has got a job description.
Yes.
You understand? If you're talking about crisis communication, it is not, every ministry should have a crisis communication, template.
Yep.
But the person who communicates about issues that have been given national importance, that have been elevated to national level, it is me. And that is my job. So when I go there, the government is there. That government is made up of elements. One of the elements is Ministry of Transport. You understand? So it's not that
It's
we
not-
should expect Ministry of Transport to communicate. I'm now government.
So when you're
spokesperson.
there, it's not the Ministry of Information and it's
No,
not ICT
it
Ministry
is the
that's
entire
communicating.
government that is there, and I'm the one who is speaking on behalf of that government.
But what CT is asking, Kano,
Yeah.
is so we saw immediately in the aftermath of what happened in Likoni, for example, we saw the action that was taking place, slow action, right? We saw the movement of the deployment now of the Navy personnel that came in there. But at the same time, the kind of information that we were getting from those officers on the ground was not good. Until you came in and you instituted a plan of this is how I'm going to communicate. This is how you're going to be giving briefs. So every day I'll give you, I think you were giving briefs twice a day?
Sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times.
Right. At least twice a day. So at least twice a day, you'd actually come in and say, "This is where we are at right now. This is what we expect to accomplish in the next couple of hours. This is what we are hoping to do tomorrow or the day after." Before you got in there, they were not giving us that information. Why must it be that Colonel Cyrus Oguna, the government spokesman, is the one who has to come with that template? Why don't they have that template? Why don't they execute that template?
Yeah, but let me put it this way: that every government ministry, every government department, and every agency has got a template on communication,
Which they can use publicly?
which they can use publicly.
Okay.
Why? Because not every situation would be elevated to that national level.
Yeah.
But there are those issues that will be handled by the Ministry of Education, by the Ministry of Health, by the Ministry of Transport, right? And they did the best they can at the time. The Ministry of Transport during, the Kenya Ferry Services. They were able to communicate to the public what time this happened, right? So when I came in, I just, gotten into a system that was already operating. I did not go with anything different, anything new.
You
I
did.
I didn't. Maybe you think
you
I
did,
did, but I did
Colonel.
not.
Let's
You
maybe
were
we can
communicating to us
show you
3 times
maybe
and
we
they were
can
not.
show you what it looked like to us, so that I think it's also good so that you can also understand from the people that you're delivering this information to on a regular basis whenever these things happen, so that you can also see how the people are consuming it. This happened on Sunday, the first time on Sunday
evening.
There was some, as CT Best put it, there was some fumbling about. We really didn't know. It was not until we heard from you on Thursday that we knew this was going to happen. And guess what? It happened. Friday, we heard that this was going to happen. It happened. The bodies were retrieved and we were told it has been sighted. They will be retrieved. It could take 2 days. All right. So we were ready to wait for 2 days. It happened in a day. The bodies were retrieved and it happened as it was communicated. It happened. Before that, the information that we were getting, there were people who visited the ground. The MD of Ferry Services said one thing, it was another thing. Questions were being asked. There was no general forward-looking direction. Meanwhile, there were people waiting for their loved ones to be retrieved. The nation was waiting with bated breath to find out exactly what was going to happen. The people who use that ferry on a daily basis were asking themselves questions and are still asking themselves questions till today. Okay, this is great that the bodies have been retrieved, but what is going to happen? Those are the questions that were being asked. And with all due respect, until Thursday, nobody knew, until you stepped in, the information that was being given out was bungled at best. And until you stepped in, and that's why I asked, if this communication template can be used publicly, then the way in which they're using it should worry you.
I think what I would say about that is that, yes, we did not do as well as we should have done, in the initial places, initial instances, and, but of course we are always learning, and I'm sure that should there be another incident, and we pray not, then we'll probably do a lot better. Yes.
But talking about incidences and how you can prevent them, I'm sure when you went to Mombasa and you clearly must have seen the state of the ferries as they are currently. We keep getting communication from people who live there. Even this very morning, we had people who use the ferry on a daily basis calling us and talking to us about the ferry. And the consensus seems to be many of the ferries that are actually in service are in a terrible condition. In fact, the thinking or the feeling as it's expressed to us is that it's a disaster waiting to happen.
You are there.
Yes, I was there.
As you were there, the ferries were crossing. You were looking at those ferries.
Let's
be honest.
I'm
when you
very
looked
honest.
at those ferries crossing,
I'm
what
very,
were you
very
feeling?
honest. Kenya Ferry Services has had a very, very good safety record. The last time that a major incident did happen was in 1994. Now, for 25 years, there had been no other incident. There might have been other minor incidents that may not have been attributed directly to Kenya Ferry.
Almost every week we hear of
Yes,
the ferry.
almost every, not the
drifting.
ferry, not the ferry itself, right?
Ferry
there would
drifting.
Those are, a ferry would drift once in a while
That
because
is
it's actually on
scare.
current.
Yes.
No,
That's
it's actually it's moving on water. Even a big ship would drift once in a while. But the safety record for the Kenya Ferry has been really, really exemplary. Let's give them, kudos for that. 25 years down the line without no major incidents.
I find it hard to do that
However-
because it seems like we are not optimizing a system. We are managing a system. I would be able to give kudos if we were optimizing something that we had that is actually working well. Everybody who is tasked with the operation, from the coxswain to the captains to whatever, doing their job right. Right now, we have it being held by a rope. I mean, if we're going to get to the nitty-gritty of it. And I think you said, Colonel Luguna, a few days ago, you said that there's going to be some training for the ferry service staff.
And I'm
I really want to understand what training is going to do to get us away from where we are now. I find it hard to applaud the management. We are just in Nigeria, we say we just they manage and they go. We are managing it to get by, as opposed to optimizing something that should work. It's like we take health insurance. We don't expect to be sick every day, but we take health insurance in case something should happen. We should have safety measures for that too, in case something should happen, like what we saw happen 14, 15 days ago. That's what should be the case. And we can't say, I really don't think we can say, because we've had a stellar record 25 years ago when only 400 people died, because that's what happened. Until now, we've not had another case. It does not mean that we should not have safety emergency services on board.
There are safety and emergency services on board.
All right.
Really, they are.
You'll tell us about
the
safety and emergency services when you come out of this break, when you look at the traffic, because we want to know what exactly is the KFS's safety procedure. When we saw what happened, we saw people were actually taking pictures and videos, and it took a couple of minutes before that car went under. And what did we see from the Kenya Ferry? Nothing. We actually didn't see any movement until that happened. So if there were procedures in place, where were they and how long do they take to be executed, right? Who presses the button? This is what we're discussing. We've got Colonel Cyrus Oguna, who's the government spokesman, in the studio this morning. We're discussing the Likoni Ferry tragedy and also looking at our national disaster preparedness. If you'd like to call in, please do. 0719-012-600. Also, if you'd like to ask a question on Facebook, where we are live streaming, Spice FM KE. Our hashtag on Twitter is hashtag Situation Room. It's 8:30. Good morning.
Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic.
All right, police giving two direction around the Uhuru Highway roundabout coming from the University Way, and traffic is actually flowing in all directions, and they're doing a good job there of traffic coming in from Mombasa Road as well as Waiyaki Way. There's not much traffic coming in from Mombasa Road because the jam on this side is crazy, my friend, coming out of Syokimau, and then we see Kiambu Road where it is not moving at all, unfortunately, and trying to get onto Thika Road. Kangondo Road, traffic is flowing well. I can count 5 cars on the road right now. It's a good thing for about 8:30 this morning. You find yourself stuck, do give us a call. Send us a message, 0719 012 600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
28 minutes to 9 o'clock. Good morning, and how are you doing? This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room, we have Siti Muga Nduoko. My name is Eric Latif, and this morning we are joined by government spokesman, retired Colonel Cyrus Oguna, and we are talking about the Likoni tragedy. So we saw Colonel Oguna was there. He was giving us the updates as everything was happening in terms of the efforts to recover the vehicle and the bodies. But now we are asking the hard question. So we had a caller this morning called Lillian from Mombasa, Colonel, and she said she uses that channel frequently. In fact, she does that every weekend. And the status of the ferry service is wanting. She just put it so bluntly. But also, let's look at what exactly happened. So in the aftermath of what happened on that Sunday, the car, what happened actually to the car? Just tell us. How did the car end up in the ocean? It was on a ferry. From ferry to ocean.
Yeah,
what happened?
Yes. That is something that investigation has to bring out. But based on what we saw, perhaps what I would maybe wish to talk about, because there's been a lot of statements and vibes that this car floated for 20 minutes after it left it rolled
ferry.
off the ferry. Before it could sink, that was floating for 20 minutes. And honestly, even science would perhaps not agree to that. There is really no way that a car would float for 20, a car with an engine, even if the tires are inflated. It will not take that much.
How long did it take?
It left the ramp at about 18:13, and it got submerged about 18:14 and some seconds. So literally,
it was a minute.
It was a minute 16 seconds to be precise.
Okay.
So, this story is taking around. This car took 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 5 minutes. Those are not true.
Those are speculations, really.
And it's unfortunate this is what is being pushed through by most media houses.
So let's start with that 1 minute and 16 seconds.
Yes.
And then look back into the next 1 hour and 2 hours. What did the Kenya Ferry Service do?
What the Kenya Ferry Services did initially, as soon as it was realized that the car had actually rolled off, the ferry stopped and tried to move back to the car as a procedure. So as it moved to the car, it was actually getting close to the so that a life ring can be thrown to the occupant of that car. And that was done. Right? Within that span of 1 minute, the ferry moved, because the ferry was actually moving forward. So when it was realized that something had been left behind in the car, so it stopped and then started to reverse. So in the process of reversing, when it got close to the car, then somebody threw, one of the lifeguards on board threw a life ring. And that is a procedure that should be done. So if it was, she was able to get out of the car, she would have held onto that life ring with her baby, and they would have been pulled out. That happened, but she was not able to get out of the car, either because she panicked. Many things would happen that we cannot now even begin to say with any degree of finality what it was. But I can only imagine that anybody in that situation would panic, bearing or considering that there's a young child there. So there are many situations that I think, that she was trying to deal with, But even science says this, that if a vehicle is submerged, not fully, even maybe halfway, you can't open the door.
It would be hard. Pressure.
It will just be hard. It will be impossible.
No, not hard. It's impossible.
It is impossible.
That is why windows are broken.
Right.
Yes.
So the only other way is that, when the car was eventually found, one window was slightly open. So whether she was trying to open that and then the vehicle got submerged before she could get out, you can only speculate. Right, but those are initial steps that were taken. So the initial
step was ferry reverses.
Yes, which it did.
Life ring is thrown.
Yes,
and unfortunately they were not able to get out of the car, so they were not able to hang on to the life ring.
Yes.
Next steps, what happened?
The next step that happened immediately was that the Kenya Ferry called an impromptu. Very very quickly they called a
crisis meeting
to determine what is the next step to be done? And then they called the Kenya Navy. The Kenya Navy was at the scene at exactly 10 minutes from the time that the vehicle sank. So a crisis kind of, meeting was held and to determine what is the next step, to be taken.
At this point, is there anything that could be done to actually save them?
Because it was already submerged, not much could be done because, diver could go in and open the door. Yes.
So at this point, as long as the car...
And remember, we are talking about going to about 6:30 now.
Yeah. It's getting dark.
It's in
So
the
it's already
evening.
dark.
It's
Okay.
getting dark. Not just getting dark, it's actually dark because, being eastwards, the sun sets much, much earlier than westwards. So by around 18:30, 18:35, it's already dark enough. If dark outside, it's also much, much darker inside the water.
Right.
What is the procedure from that? So you're saying a crisis meeting is called immediately?
Yes.
Right? And who sits in this crisis meeting? Because the reason why we are asking this is so that
Yes,
we understand
yeah, you
exactly what should have happened and whether it happened.
And I'm glad that you're asking this question. That in every region, every county, every town, there is a crisis response mechanism. Right? Now, depending on where the crisis has taken place, the person who is in the center of it will make a call to the crisis center. That crisis center is also linked to the National Disaster Operations Center in Nairobi here. So they'll mobilize. So among the people who arrived there is Kenya Ferry Services, Kenya Port Authority, Kenya Maritime, the Navy, the Red Cross. All of them came in on that evening. But there's not much they could do because, when somebody say that that vehicle got submerged there, another person will say, I saw it there. Another person will say, I saw it there. So they have to begin to plan because now it was no longer, rescue. It is now, recovery. Yeah. So there's a planning stages that have, that must be, undertaken, planning process to determine that this vehicle has gone in. It is, there's no doubt, but within 6 minutes you are dead because you cannot stay underwater for more than 6 minutes and you're still alive. So it's more of a recovery. So now, if this vehicle got, based on, eyewitnesses account, I saw it there, I saw it here. So the next step now is, if it went down here, what must we do to bring it up? Right?
Right.
So the Navy came on board, and because it was night, they could not dive. Even if they were to dive, they could not see anything.
So decision is taken, let's dive tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning.
And tomorrow morning they go in there.
Yes.
Between this time, 6:30 p.m. and tomorrow morning, what communication is issued?
There should have been communication.
Right.
Official communication. That's what I'm saying, that, crisis communication should have come out, immediately that this thing happened, this is what we are doing about it, and to reassure the public that something is being
Or
done.
to give this information that you've just given.
Yes.
Because I'm going into now Monday.
Yes.
So Monday, the Navy divers go in. From the Kenya Ferry Service, we are still not getting communication until later in the day.
I would not say that there was no communication. Perhaps it did not come out the way you expected to come out. But I remember MD trying to give out information about what had happened, and what they were doing.
What was he trying to do?
He was trying to communicate to the public. Yes.
So he's questioned and he's responding.
Well, he was.
I'm taking you through step by step because this is a matter that we're saying we have SOPs.
Yep, and I'm saying.
And if these SOPs say that the Kenya Ferry MD is the person who will communicate in this crisis, and the Kenya Ferry MD communicated 14 hours later, is this part of the SOP?
No.
Or is it not?
What I'm saying that the SOP says this, that you're supposed to communicate as fast as possible.
As possible. Right.
That's the SOP. You understand?
Yep.
So now, and I'm also acknowledging that perhaps we do not do so well here.
Right.
And we're always learning. So from one event or one situation, you learn and you become much better in the next situation. Perhaps we would acknowledge maybe at the initial stages, communication did not flow as well as it should, but it's a learning, curve for us as a government that in future we will do a lot better than this time. Yes.
We're at a point where we are saying we got to a stage where the government spokesperson had to go to Likoni, right? It's become a national issue. But also the Transport Ministry has dispatched some senior person, the PS, to go here and coordinate this. The Navy, of course, because the Navy is taking over the rescue operation, and it was a good thing that the Navy has sent a person as high as a colonel to go and oversee this operation. Navy, fine. But why do we have to have a PS going to do this? It shows that the government is feeling, wait. There's some balls are actually being dropped here. This is why the PS has to be deployed to go and oversee a situation where there should be standard operating procedures.
Not necessarily.
This is what has happened. This is how we shall handle it.
Not necessarily. Remember, the Kenya Ferry Services is actually an agency within the Ministry of Transport. So the technical person there is the PS. So her going there is not that somebody was dropping the ball. She also had to find out what exactly happened. Remember, she also has got,
she's got to answer upwards.
Upwards. You understand? So she cannot do that if she's not actually on the ground.
Okay.
Yes.
I know we'll come back to this point where we are, but if we can go forward, because the bodies were retrieved, and that was an applaud moment for everybody in the country. However, that day and the subsequent day, and even until today, we have the ferry traveling, and we've seen pictures with the ramp down. And you can imagine, we've seen pictures where I think the last vehicle was a pickup truck, and we hope that we as we see it, we can only hope that it gets to the end. What I'm saying is, it's not a whole picture that needs to be taken into consideration, but the very details of one person making sure that they're doing their job. And for me, there's no amount of training, there's no amount of admonishment, there's no amount of plans for the future that we can put in place, as opposed to making sure that every individual does their job. Because what you do is then that you have cocks and screws making sure that you have a well-oiled machine. And right now, those are basic things. We have a rope standing as a barrier. We have a ramp on a ferry that is not down. 13 days after a national disaster, a national tragedy that happened. And still, the very thing that got us into the mess in the first place is still happening. And this is the cry from the people. If that itself, and we have a coxswain on duty. We have lifeguards on duty. On that same ferry, from where this thing happened, it is still operating in the same manner. Are we really going to move forward? That's my question. Are we really going to move forward?
Yes, we are going to move forward. And we're going to move forward and offering really very good services to those who are crossing from Likoni to Mombasa and back. Because there are major plans, and I know what you're asking, that what should we do fast?
Immediately. Now, today. Yeah.
And yes, there are, serious plans being undertaken. I know that there are issues that are being addressed by the government. And one of the things that, the Kenya Ferry is going to do is to ensure that there are, regular maintenance of the ships. But that does not mean that because the prow is that ramp, that since it is flat, that, would be sufficient enough reason for vehicles to roll back. You understand? Because it has never happened before. So I'm not trying to justify it. It's supposed to be a chain, right? And that chain is just for an additional kind of safety requirement.
I assume it's just an additional. Just demarcation.
Just you cannot go beyond here. You understand, right? So I think what needs to be done is for now for all of us to wait for the report, the investigation report, to determine exactly what really transpired. Why am I saying this? Because, the ferry hardly slants for a vehicle to roll back. And the tides were very calm. That it would not necessarily, be, there's no yaw. So really, to the extent that this vehicle rolled back, there must be something major than just the fact that there was no, chain to prevent it. So investigation will be able to unearth why. However, moving forward, the Kenya Ferry is putting serious measures in place to improve a lot of procedures. This is an issue of procedure, and it's unfortunate that somebody's, 2 lives were lost. But the procedures are like this: the moment you get onto the ferry, and you're driving, you switch off and you get out of the vehicle.
So nobody should be inside
Inside
a
the
vehicle,
vehicle.
when on the
Nobody
ferry.
should be.
Actually, it's the rule.
It's the
This
rule
is the
as it
rule.
stands right now.
No, it has always been the
It's
rule.
always been the
It-
rule.
Yes.
That is this procedure. It
So
is-
that's the procedure.
So maybe
Yes,
what
it has
the
always
Kenya
been the
Ferry
procedure.
is trying to
And
do is to ensure, of course, there will be some element of laxity in the sense that those who are supposed to enforce those regulations perhaps did not enforce them enough.
Yep.
And I think this is again not just a Kenya Ferry. I think is a societal problem that we have as a people. That even those soft regulations, very soft, we find so hard to obey them. And I'm trust my sister that at one time or another you've actually been able to cross the traffic.
I have.
When it is supposed to be red, and because there's nobody behind you, you don't have to wait.
Oh, no.
you-
Actually, I personally don't, because actually,
Or, or
But
even
you've seen people do
the Pelican crossing, the zebra crossing. You're
Yep.
supposed to go there, but we just zoom past.
Yeah.
Those are simple, basic regulations that
The
many of us would want to only obey when there's a policeman around.
But let's come back to the ferry.
Coming back
So
to the ferry,
there are procedures that should be followed.
there are procedures that or should be followed, must be followed.
And the people who operate the ferry know the procedures more, of course, than
And
the
that's what I'm
users
saying,
of the
that
ferry.
there's an element of laxity that has to be, enforced now to ensure that those regulations and procedures are adhered to.
So can I ask you, if they are not adhered to, who takes responsibility? I'll give you an example. Here on Mombasa Road, just as you are approaching the airport, if you stop your vehicle, within seconds, 2 APs
GSU, actually.
will be there. You are not allowed to stop there, and everybody knows. Even as you're walking along, somebody will stop you and ask you, "What are you doing here?" You stop your vehicle, even if your vehicle has
Mechanical
as
issues,
even if it has a mechanical issues, you will still be stopped, and they will even help you move it to a safe area.
Yeah.
That is enforced. It is clear. If something should happen around that area, those two, whomever are on duty, will be asked. You were supposed to be on duty to make sure that nothing passed through here, nobody came here. They're very sure, and they expend their duties to the letter of the law. So now I'm asking, going back to the ferry, because we always think these things happen, Colonel Laguna, you must admit, after some time we forget about it. Because it happened, it
All the
went.
time,
Yeah,
sure.
all the time. And we forget that lives were lost. There will be a burial. We say, Pole, they go. But we will forget about it. And then we will still have overloading. And then people don't actually adhere to the rules and the regulations. And then we have another problem. And then we start from the beginning. But we find that when somebody has to take responsibility for an action or inaction, it serves as a deterrent from that thing happening again. In this case, who takes responsibility?
If you're talking about, somebody taking responsibility for, the commuters not necessarily obeying regulation, it should be both ways. Yes.
Somebody
Both
taking
ways-
responsibility. So
both
both
ways.
ways.
Both ways in the sense that you who is not getting out of your vehicle, something should also be done to you.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So talk about ways.
Absolutely.
However, what Kenya Ferry Services is actually doing right now is to ensure that those who are supposed to ensure that those such soft regulations are actually adhered to are given additional training, are given the necessary support that they require to ensure that everybody in the ferry is actually able to obey those instructions.
I'm sure you can hear everybody who's listening to this laughing. I'm sure you can hear that, Colonel. Because when you talk about, they're given additional training. Training for what?
No,
They
let me
know
explain
it.
to you.
They
Let
know
me
it.
explain to you. Let me explain to you, Latif.
Culpability.
They could be laughing, but because they do not necessarily understand. When I talk about training, and perhaps at some point we delve into this, that Kenya Ferry Services has got 5, people on board employed by the Kenya Ferry. Out of those 5, all of them, actually all the 5, are actually lifesavers.
Right.
And there are also people who are, supposed to, other than the coxswain, to ensure that regulations and procedures, onboard procedures, are actually adhered to. But the additional training that they have to get is for those lifesavers, is to ensure that they can actually be able to do a little bit more
And what they're doing now.
than what they're doing now.
Right.
That's the kind of training that I'm talking about, right? And a bit of firmness, because that is an area that, of course, we have to concede that they have not been a bit firm. And I think, it's the aspect of ndugunization. Ndugunization is that because I know you, Latif.
I know you.
I know you. We come from the same, sub-county in Mombasa,
Sawa.
you can just stay in your vehicle.
Kaa kwa gari,
You
AC,
understand?
washa AC.
So that's issues that have to be addressed, and that's what I'm talking about.
At the top, I'm looking at the top, Kano. I'm looking at there's management that knows that this is what we are supposed to do. And management should take responsibility for this. Yes, go back and retrain those people. Yes, go train new people, even bring them there. But somebody dropped the ball at the top level. And their responsibility at that top level is to ensure that nobody drops the ball. So when they let the ball drop, really, we should drop them.
Well, I would not necessarily, put it that way myself. I would put it this way, that there is investigation that is currently having been instituted by the government. They'll make their recommendations, and on the basis of those recommendations, then appropriate action shall be taken.
Will that information be communicated to people
It
and
will
shared?
be communicated. There are people who lost their loved ones there. There are people concerned about the ferry services. There are people concerned about safety and security around the whole infrastructure of the ferry. But they would be interested to get to know what recommendations have been.
You'll forgive us if we're a bit skeptical, because when the problem that happened or the deaths that occurred at Precious Talent, one of the things that was alarming was that a commission had been set up 5 years prior, and Precious Talent was among the schools that they had clearly indicated required action taken against because they didn't meet certain standards 5 years prior. Yes, the owner of the school is in court, matters are being taken, but we've heard nothing about Ministry of Education officials whose docket it is to ensure that what was recommended 5 years prior had been implemented.
And was done.
What we are seeing is the minister telling us about schools that they have actually closed.
Yeah.
Now, closing of the schools will serve some purpose. What about the officials whose duty it was to ensure that right was done by
In
the
the
people
first
who
place.
entrust the lives of their children to them as a ministry?
Hold that question, Colonel. Will come to you because I have another one here from Albert calling in from Kisumu. Good morning, Albert.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Albert.
I've got two questions to Mr. Oguna.
Colonel Oguna, sir.
Sorry, Colonel Oguna.
Yes.
My first question would go, why do we have a government that cannot organize themselves so that we have precautionary measures and not only act after an incident has occurred? Citing few examples, the school that we had, the children lost, the several other buildings that were collapsing, and now the recent incidents of the ferry.
Thank you, Albert.
Question two.
Yes.
We had to import services of divers from other countries. Does it mean then that Kenya do not have qualified, competent divers who could take the services and manage what happened at the Likoni ferry incident?
Okay. So Albert is going to answer those questions. Let me also take another one from Roderick. Roderick, good morning.
Hello, habari zenu.
Salama, Roderick.
Kanani, thank you for the service for this country.
Asante sana.
But now Kanani, wewe uliingia kwa kazi ambayo iko moto sana. It will be embarrassing for you to appear every time to try to explain to the nation that why are things that could be dealt properly and managed well, and still have a conscience the next day to wake up to work. Because I think even our politicians and the people who are in these positions don't really care and don't have a conscience. Because Kenya is flooding with disasters left, right, and center. I'm just trying to imagine if an earthquake happens in Nairobi right now, the disaster that will be in the pipeline. Because there are some skyscrapers in these areas in Eastlands, and if something, God forbid, happens right now or house collapse, deaths that will be experienced in this nation will be traumatic.
So Roderick, I hear you. So what you're asking is you're questioning our disaster preparedness.
Disaster preparedness. We have so many jobless people that can be trained to do these jobs,
right?
Like that, deep sea diving and all that. And I think even every ferry should have an escort. About that of 100 million shillings, we still a lot than that. 100 million, Bob, with like 10 or 20 lifeguards with equipment. Iwezi shinda hii serikali ya Kenya.
Okay.
It's embarrassing.
Thank you, Roderick. The Colonel is going to respond to those questions. I think we take maybe one and then not one more call. Answer one of the questions.
Answer Albert. He's talking about why we always act after an incident has happened, and indeed, as human beings, I don't think that there's any human being that has got the ability to predict disaster. What we can do as a government is to ensure that when they do happen, that their impact is minimized as a government. I think that is global, is universal, that you cannot predict when tsunami will strike. You cannot predict when an aircraft is going to crash. You cannot predict when something major is going to happen.
When an unsafe building is going to...
You cannot predict.
When?
Because of this. That there are people charged with the responsibility. Those are the engineers, the quantity surveyors, everybody. But when we are a society that has perfected the art of cutting corners, that everything we do, we are cutting corners. Everything. So there's an element in which, as a society, we need to also relook at our values as a people. And values, like somebody did say, is not something that can be enforced. You cannot get values that because of laws that exist. It's something that you develop as you grow up. So when we seemed to want to, that money means everything. And the quicker you get it, the better. Even if it means, endangering the lives of people. Because when you're constructing a building using substandard material that are cheaper, we don't care who is going to live there. You're not concerned about that. So there is something that is wrong with us as a people that we must find a way in which to address.
All right, so it starts with us, but the government has a role to ensure, and that's why the government comes in with enforcement of rules. That's why the government comes in with regulations. And setting in regulations and enforcing them is your job. Ours is to abide.
Yes, but look at it this way, Eric.
Yeah.
That you are constructing a house, your own house. It is your house, all right? You know that the material that are required for that house.
Let me cut you short. I think this is going to be a long response to this. I want to get to the top of the hour. 0719-012-600. We have Colonel Cyrus Oguna, the government spokesman, in the studio this morning. We'd like for you to call in and give him also suggestions on how else the government can do. This is the Situation Room on Spice FM. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
All right, Mombasa Road is still crying foul. Mombasa Road around Syokimau, trying to get past Cabanas has been quite the challenge this morning, around about 9 o'clock, and it's still very bad. Kiambu Road is bumper to bumper, trying to get onto the Thika Superhighway today. There is quite the traffic situation there as well. It's not letting up, unfortunately, on Ngong Road either. Trying to get towards the City Mortuary roundabout, traffic is slow. It's moving, but it's slow. You'll get there eventually, and we'll keep you moving if you do let us know what is important for us to share. 0719-012-600.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
And we are in Mombasa on 87.9, 102.5 Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 Eldoret, 90.9 Nyeri, 97.7 Malindi. In the Situation Room, my name is Eric Latif Nduoko City Muga. We are joined on the hot seat by the government spokesman, Colonel Retired Cyrus Siguna. Now, you were responding to some questions from Albert and Roderick. Yes. And you were talking about the first one is, Albert was asking, why must we always wait for something to happen so that we can see government? Why don't we see government before?
The government is always there, honestly.
We just don't see it.
We see it everywhere. But who is government? We always look, and at an entity called government.
Our concept of government is the people who we pay.
I understand.
From our
but look at it this way. What is your responsibility as a citizen? You just given an example of maybe building crashing. Or collapsing. But what is your responsibility as the owner of that building? I'll give a quick example. Right now, even before now, there was drought in some certain parts of this country. And drought simply means that there is no water, there is no rain. Right now, there is enough rain. What are we doing about it? Because after the rain, there will be drought. What is our responsibility as a people? Can't we harvest water? Must we be told by the government to harvest water so that when rain eventually dries, we have something that we can be able to use? So yes, there is something that we must do as a people. Everything starts from here. But it cannot be looking back to the government every time something happens, something that in our own estimation should have been done by you. So yes, there is an element which even you as an individual, you have a role to play. So we must look back into ourselves and ask ourselves, why am I buying, chicken wire and building a one-story building with chicken wire? Yet you know yourself that it cannot hold that weight. You understand? So there is an element within us that must also require social engineering.
True. And when you have criminal elements with amongst us who actually go ahead and do that, the government's role is to ensure.
And that is why they are in court right now.
At the end of the process.
No, of course.
After a disaster.
Well, certainly it will be after disaster. It should be before the disaster. But somebody has to, if when this person is building this building, people are seeing.
Right, and we're saying that these disasters are avoidable. There are those, disasters that we can't really do anything about. We talked about, look, if somebody said if there's a hurricane, or is that what he said? Hurricane.
Yep.
In this country, or an earthquake, if that's something we can't really mitigate. But here we are, we have a building. And for me, it's not even about the building or that it was built by somebody. This particular building was earmarked 5 years ago. We already planned ahead of time, and we saw that this could have actually been sorted out before. It happened to have been one of the same schools. Now, if you move to Precious Talent, one of the same schools in that report, there was a directive given out. People went out and did the due diligence and found out, yes, there are certain schools, certain establishments that their buildings are not in conducive, form for them to run a school. Something should be done. The people who had the mandate didn't do it. And then the result that we see is that this building fell and children died. This is one example. So the question that we're asking is that those then who've been given the power to regulate, those who've been given the power to legislate and make sure that this does not happen, dropped the ball. What happens
to them?
And of course, if you listen to what the Minister for Education did, the CS Education did say, is that the heads are going to roll.
Have they rolled,
Colonel? It's taking a while for these heads to roll, but the children have been married.
Are we shaving the heads first?
Let me before they roll.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're preparing them for rolling.
No, the heads actually have been rolling. perhaps they don't get to the media.
Again, information that is not
but we
shared
don't
with
have
us.
to share that so and so has been sacked.
Actually, we do.
Yes, you do.
You do.
Yes, we do.
You do.
Because we've
As
been
a
told that
deterrent
these
as well.
children
We do.
died. We've been
You do.
told that these
Oh,
children died.
well, I'm
we
saying
sat
this.
in this
Yeah.
situation for days
So
and
we are
days
going
and
to
days
inform
and beg for
when
something to be
somebody
done.
is fired.
They should
Yes,
tell us.
yes.
We will say that so and so had been fired because of ABC that
Yes,
day.
absolutely.
like when you
Albert-
fire the CEO of Kenya Ferry,
Yes.
you want to
Tell
be
us.
informed.
It should be made public.
Yes.
The CEO of
Well,
Kenya Ferry has been fired. The top management, the manager in
I
charge of
I
safety
don't know
has been fired
whether he will
because
be fired or
of
not.
ABC.
But like I did mention earlier on.
We're saying when.
Well, not when. Mine is that what I can say that the report will recommend what action needs to be taken. And on the basis of the strength of that report, certainly some action will be taken.
Albert had a second question.
The question that, and this is a kind of, it's a question that many people have talked about, a lot of media houses, and it's a question that is based on perhaps misinformation. And a bit of, allow me to use this word, a bit of ignorance. Yes. The Kenya Navy is the best Navy in this region and beyond. And I'm not saying this because I come from the military, no. But the Kenya Navy has got sufficient divers and they have been contracted across this region and beyond. The same divers doing stellar jobs wherever they have gone. They've been contracted, even when we had this air crash in Abidjan, they were the ones who went there to retrieve the pieces and everything else.
Yep.
You understand? So when you're saying that Kenya Navy doesn't have enough divers, it is not true. However, listen, he is asking this question because of what has been appearing in most of these media houses.
Yeah, the South Africans who
that's
came.
South Africans. I'll tell you this, and I'm saying it on national radio,
Yep.
that the South Africans, even when the vehicle was being sighted now, they were no longer there.
They had done their job and gone.
And they had given up. And I'm saying this because I was there.
Wait, what are you saying that the South Africans came? This was beyond
The
their depth?
vehicle, let me
They were
explain.
unable to do
And I'm
this?
saying this because people don't necessarily know what happened there. And when there's a system, there's a lot of noise within the system.
Yes.
So most people pick the noise without necessarily listening to what is actually going on within the system.
Listening to the facts.
That is what has happened. And the truth of the matter is that before all these private divers came on board, and we could not stop them to come on board because they were hired privately by the family. You understand?
Yep.
But the Kenya Navy did the diving, and they were doing this, diving through what we'd call elimination method. They had mapped out possible areas
Where the car could be found.
where their car could be found. So they were able to, tick those areas that did not have the vehicle. When these other divers came on board, they did what they could. They could not locate the vehicle, so they were going back. And this is true. When SECO, this is Southern Engineering Company that was hired by the government through the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure, SECO brought in an equipment through the effort of the government. And that equipment was directed by the Kenya Navy to possible areas, having cleared all the others. The Kenya Navy, the SECO did not come with a diver.
So SECO brought equipment.
Brought equipment.
That Kenya Navy
The
does
Kenya
not have.
Navy do not have.
Yes.
That I have to concede that the Kenya Navy has got a 2D equipment.
I think you need to explain what SECO does and why they would have the equipment and why
Yeah,
why
Kenya
the
Navy would
Kenya
not.
Navy could
SECO's
not
job
possibly-
is to do underwater salvage.
Yes.
Okay.
That's why they need that equipment. The Navy operates above the sea surface.
Okay.
So the equipment they have is not one that would be called upon to use every day.
This is
They don't need a
specialized.
3D equipment. SECO needs that because that is what they do. That's their primary role, to do underwater salvage. Understand? So when we are not able to locate, accurately where the vehicle is, then those need to bring this other equipment, which, based on direction by the Kenya Navy, it was able to locate the vehicle. By that time, these other private divers were actually at the airport going back.
They're on their way out.
They were on their way out. You understand?
Now, this is what I was talking about before. When there is a vacuum of information, you leave room for a lot of conspiracy to take place. But now, if this information, do you see, we're sharing this information after the fact. Can you imagine how powerful we can make people when we give them this information? Because then it doesn't leave room for me to now conjure up, and then it doesn't jeopardize the operation. If we share the information, even if you're giving it out in doses like antibiotics, so that at least you cool people down for a little while, and then give them more information later. Can you see what it does?
But, my sister, look, this is a private diving firm that was hired privately
by the family.
By the family. I don't have to say that they're now going back.
No, but the impression that was being given was that the government or the Navy was not able to handle this.
No,
and
was doing nothing.
Was doing nothing.
No.
And that is why private divers had to be brought in, or did not have the necessary equipment to get it done. And so it needed to be brought in from somewhere else. But do you see the way you've described it to us now? Do you see the way you've explained it to us now? This is information that would have cost nothing to share with the Kenyan public had it been told earlier.
Which we did. I did explain. What I did not say that this private divers are now going back. That I did not say because it was not necessarily.
It wasn't actually even important
at that point.
But I did explain that SECO has been contracted by the government through the Ministry of Transport to bring in an equipment. Now, what I did not explain, because then those are giving out too much details, that the Navy had been able to eliminate using and that elimination method so that we are actually closing. And we did mention, Eric, that we had 4 points that were left. So the vehicle was found within one of those
4 points.
Yes, which we did explain.
Talk to us about we know the president, was it last year but one, went to the coast and he launched the Kenya Coast Guard. And we've been discussing it here and saying, so we have a Coast Guard. From what we see in the movies, the Coast Guard is one that does this kind of work.
The Coast Guard does on the sea what police do on the ground. Yeah. That's what we are.
Yes, precisely. The Coast Guard, as of now, is more of a planning element, meaning that it's perhaps just headquartered. It does not have its own departments.
It is not operational.
It's not operational as it is now. So it is actually relying on the existing institutions.
I see.
Yeah. So it relies on the Navy, Kenya Port Authority, Kenya Maritime Authority, Kenya Ferry Services. Those all fall under Coast Guard.
When it comes into full operation, what should we expect from it?
Much better, of course. Safety and security at the Indian Ocean.
So they'd be the ones that would be called upon, for example,
that they can relieve the Navy to do its primary mandate.
Yes. Well, the Navy is actually supposed to be our protection against external aggression.
Water aggression, yeah.
Yes.
Seaborne aggression.
Colonel, we've had ferry disasters even in the West. Massive, and many people have died. But you don't hear this amount of condemnation because every safety measure that is known is assumed to have been taken and is seen to have been taken. So it's now considered an accident. The reason why the Kenyan public hits hard, there's this element of mistrust, which slowly but surely is moving towards distrust about what the government does, what it can do, and what it's able to do. If everything that the ferry services could do was seen to have been done, it would have been an accident, pure and simple. The blame that is being pointed in all directions could not possibly have occurred because it would be clear.
Yep.
The coxswain informed everybody in the car to get out because that's what they do. I'm speaking as someone who grew up in Mombasa.
Yeah.
They would even tell you, Gary, this way, wewe, songa nyuma, wewe, toka. They would tell you. The lapse that you spoke of is what opens the door to the amount of criticism that you keep hearing. And when there's a continuing of it from one element of one part of the country to another, then it is amalgamated into one. The government is not doing what it's supposed to do. And so even what the government does is now not seen.
That's true. Yes. I agree. I couldn't agree more. And in fact, communication is like, power.
Absolutely. Information.
It abhors vacuum.
It abhors a vacuum all the time.
So, when there is nobody in charge, somebody will take charge.
You've got a job cut out for you.
One last question for you. You started off by telling us how you give this information and you share information about pertinent issues relating to government work in this country.
Yes.
How about what happens with follow-up? How then do we come back and ask questions on the information that you initially gave?
Yeah, follow-up is, like I did mention, that we have got various platforms that, people can be able to follow up on various issues that we've given out and find out. But also we're trying to move forward, and we're going to have an interactive, kind of session whereby we're going to have one day, not one day, once a week. We'll determine the time where people can now be able to call in and be able to be interactive, question and answer session. That's just like what we are doing here. So we're going to move forward and institute that. That, in our view, would be able to, provide real-time responses, as opposed to when somebody sends an email or sends a Twitter or something, and then it takes about 3-4 days before it can get answers. So we're going to create a platform that would allow real-time responses to their concerns.
You got your work cut out for you, Colonel. We thank you for joining us this morning. Of course, the conversation that we've had has been about Likoni. We are going to talk about our education system because exams are going to be coming up in a couple of days. And we'd like you to stay on because you can chime into this conversation. Now, we'll not be asking you. We'll actually be continuing our conversation like we always do. And you'll be contributing like one of us. But you will be answering some questions, of course. And when you go back to the government, please tell them that we'd like to see heads rolling at the Kenya Ferry Service. We'd like to see action taken at the Kenya Ferry Service. We'd like to see action taken about the Precious Talent School.
And we'd like to be informed about the action.
And we'd like to be informed about it. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. It's 17 minutes past 9 o'clock.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How, you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog. Jione Kenya.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Thank you very much for joining us in the Situation Room this morning. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We have CT Muga Ndu Oko, I'm Eric Latif, and we also have Colonel retired Cyrus Oguna, who's a government spokesman. Let's talk about education, Ndu.
Well, it's not 2 months since we had, it actually is about a month and a half since we had the disaster that happened at the Precious Talent School in Dagoretti area of Nairobi. And soon after that, we had then quite a number of questions that were being asked and several investigations that were then done. And then there was the closure or the demand for closure of schools that had not met the threshold of, adequate buildings as it is. Then there was a closure of several private schools. Up to 300 schools have been closed, and more have been earmarked for closing by the 31st of October. A lot of parents have complained because now what happened essentially was that we had 10,000 students or 10,000 learners then who were removed from what was resident to them as schools. And the directive that was then given thereafter was that they should then be absolved into the public schools that were available in the area. Now, a lot of parents, the decision they made to send their children to private schools was because of the distance from where they resided to where these schools were. Secondly, the issue that was then, another issue that was raised, there was overcrowding in these schools. There were more students than they felt comfortable with per class. And then also there was a shortage of teachers whereby you had one teacher that was teaching up to 70 or 80 students in a class. Whereas in a private school, no matter how bad it was, at least they could make sure that there was one teacher to 25 students. So we're getting round to exam period. The KCSE and the KCPE will take place in the next 10 days or so. And a lot of these students have still not been absorbed into schools, and their parents are actually saying, what then is going to happen? The measures have been taken whereby schools have been closed, but that is not the answer right now, because we've stopped learning for a lot of students and they're entering into a period where they have to take exams. Was this the way to go about it? And how can we make sure that we are not back into the same situation that got us here in the first place? So essentially, we have a bit of a crisis whereby exams are coming and some students have not been placed.
It's a dicey situation.
It is dicey, probably not as alarmist as we should sound, because the truth of the matter is that with these 10,000 students who have essentially been locked out of school with the closure, that a number of them have been taken into other public institutions, but we do have quite a number that have not been absorbed.
What you may be talking about here again is lack of communication. The Kenya National Examination Council are a fairly organized bunch.
It's true, but they've actually stated, and just yesterday when some parents were making noise about this, they said that, well, they can only recommend what needed to be done, but they cannot actually force everybody to go into the public schools. This is what they said, and they are aware that quite a number of students have not actually gone into existing system. However, they said they cannot force. If you feel that you cannot take the recommendation that we have made, then there's nothing that we can do at this point. We're going to go ahead with the examinations, as it were. And this is the information that they sent out as late as yesterday.
But during such situations, certainly there will be inconveniences. And sometimes you want to look at what is better. Is it to be convenienced for a while, or the safety of my child to be put in danger? And I think it would be appropriate for people to accept the inconveniences, which would be temporary, because this is not going to go on for a long time. Within that period, the government certainly is working on ways to ensure that some schools are built so that these kids can come back to school. I do recall that precious talent, that money has been given out to build a permanent school, a good school within that region, so that these kids can come back to a government school.
What land will they build it on?
The government, the MP for Dagoretti gave out land, and he also gave out money. So that school will be built on that land that was given, because I was there when that was being done.
Private land?
Yes.
He donated land?
He donated land. And,
so
and also donated 10 million. And the Ministry of Education also donated 10 million. So that was just to start off, and eventually, other resources would be brought in to be able to build a school. So this certainly is a temporary measure to be taken to Lenana Forest School, so that to allow for the construction of this school to take place as pupils are actually learning, as opposed to letting them stay home. But critically, we as parents must also appreciate that what the government is doing is to ensure that whatever happened, do not happen again. It may indeed bring out some inconveniences, but the inconveniences to ensure that the safety and security of our children is guaranteed.
Safety and security, Kano, is a big thing, and it's important. But we've had this conversation here many times, and we've had callers, parents, who've actually called and said, I'm calling from Kibra, and in the situation here is my children go to such a school. It's dilapidated, but I look at it in terms of the quality that they are getting there. If they go to the nearest public school, which is not far, they can actually walk to a public school. The crowding, the number of teachers in that school, the situation in that school versus what I'm being given by this private institution, this small private institution.
In this ramshackle.
It's better for me.
Is better quality. And I'm looking at it in terms of their future. Should they actually go through this system, they'll have a better education than me putting them in that school. Yes, we have better assurance of safety, but less assurance of quality.
It's an environment where people have got, the freedom of choice. You choose the school that you want to go to. The government cannot force you to take your child to a certain school. But even you as a parent must also look at, what am I getting? I could be
quality.
Getting, what they would term as good quality, but at what risk? So as a parent, of course, all of us are rational human beings. We are supposed to take certain decisions that you're looking for quality, but at what cost?
And I'm telling you, they've actually rationalized.
This is the way they've rationalized it.
It's actually not just...
It has actually
But I would like to
rationalized.
ask something different. Within the education sector, we have a strange situation. Strange in that we hear reports of many people who are trained as teachers and yet do not have employment. And yet we also hear at the same time schools that do not have enough teachers. I would assume that the government, therefore, in such a situation would give this issue priority and probably employ more teachers. That doesn't seem to happen.
No, it doesn't.
I don't understand.
Not as fast as.
I think the issue here is rationalization, because when you talk about some schools not having enough teachers, there are schools that have got more teachers than they need. So it's a question of rationalizing, and that's what the Ministry of Education is trying to do, to ensure that some of the schools that have got more than they need are able to, shed off some teachers to those schools that do not have. Indeed, yes, they may not be enough, and that's why the government recently employed additional number of teachers.
Yep.
But indeed, there are schools that have more than they need.
This narrative seems to have played out as it's as old as the day is long, because we've been hearing there's a gap, there are not enough teachers, but then recently there was a hiring of 9,000 interns. So interns kind of makes you assume that it is a temporary measure until they're able to sort whatever it is out. And again, yes, we do have quite a lot of teachers who are unemployed, don't have a job. So if this is information that's coming to us in piecemeal, I would assume that the Ministry of Information has all of this kind of mapped out and is able to...
Ministry of Education.
Yeah, Ministry of Education sees all of this and is able to map out and say, here's where we have a surplus, here's where we have inadequate numbers. How then? Because we would want to assume that they have an overall picture and then are able to, or rather are willing to make the decisions concerning that. What do they do with the information that they have? Even this report that they got 5 years ago about what the state was, it sounds great that they're making this move, 300 schools having been closed because of dilapidated structures and so. But it seems a bit reactionary that we are making important policy decisions on an emotive matter like this. Important things for the future of our children. It seems that we would want to make proper long-term decisions and actually have positive, impactful results on going forward. Because I would shudder to think that in another 5 years, we'll be having the same conversation that we're having today.
I hope not.
I
hope not. I would not want to come here and talk about
of course,
same
the same thing.
That mean that we're not making any progress.
Exactly, we're not moving forward.
But again, must also acknowledge, really, and even appreciate that, government is not a perfect institution.
Because it's made up of individuals.
Because it's made up of individuals. And not all of us, yes, we should be pulling in the same direction, but not all of us are pulling in the same direction. So the government is trying to find a way. And indeed, what you said, that 5 years down the line or down the road, how come this report has not been acted upon? Because somebody saw that school, saw the state that it was in. Maybe somebody went and inspected that school.
Yep. And they went away.
Maybe they went away with something in their pocket.
Yep.
I understand.
And I'm also in the practice.
But that's I'm saying that there is an element of erosion of morals in certain institutions, and if we don't fix that, and the government is trying to ensure that is fixed, but we cannot fix it. Like I keep on saying, my brother, that if you plant oranges, you don't expect mangoes from that tree or from that farm. And what am I saying? That it is a reflection of our society, that these people who are employed within the Ministry of Education and other ministries are coming from the same society. So when they get to the Ministry of Education, Ministry of wherever, they go there with their values, some of which, so somebody would see that this is a space where I can be able to make some little money.
And they go ahead and exploit that.
And exploit that.
There's a
word
for...
That is something that you want to correct.
There's a word for what you're talking about, Colonel. And this word, we've used it so many times in this country. Impunity. And impunity basically talks about that. It's seeing that people know that if I do this, nothing is going to happen to me.
I will get away with it.
I will get away with it.
Others have gotten away with it.
I get away with it. just like so and so got away with
but
it.
that impunity.
And that's why if you look at what the president is doing now with a push to fight corruption and saying just yes, go ahead, arrest somebody, take them to court, arrest and take them to court. Let people feel accountable for something. If we don't see that kind of action, if we say that, we're going to have heads rolling, but first of all, let's go through a report. The people who are preparing that report are human beings, and they could be compromised.
Yeah,
Same way.
See, okay. The way a government works, that everything has to have a procedure. Excuse me. So that whatever you're doing has to got some trail that can be actually audited. That this, I did this.
This is what happened and why.
I did this, and eventually this is what action that was taken. The procedure is actually, provided for in law. So those procedures must be followed. If it was a private farm, people just be fired every day.
Or suspended.
But in government, there are procedures that must be followed. But indeed, I think the bigger thing here, like you talked about, impunity. But impunity is because of those values. You understand? That we don't have. Values that I'm not serving the interest of my neighbor. I'm serving the interest of 50 million Kenyans. And therefore, when it is my brother or my uncle, my relative who has done something wrong, and I'm a police officer, the law should take its own course. But it will not happen. So that when I do something wrong, I call my uncle.
Yes.
Please help me here.
I know a guy.
Yeah,
I have your number, Kano. If something happened,
you just call me.
Tell you.
Currently, you come from a background where discipline is the order of the day.
Yes.
And there's clarity as to what should happen. There's great clarity. So,
there's
and there are consequences
and everything.
And everyone knows. I'm right in saying this, am I not?
You're very right.
We are saying that same level of rigor is what the public is demanding of the
public
government.
Service.
Yes.
I agree. But even the same public must be prepared for that. In
Yes.
other words,
Yes.
everybody has a responsibility.
Yeah.
In the barracks, I can never throw litter anyhowly.
Yes.
But why do you throw litter just anyhowly here? Yet
Because
we know
there
what
are
you're
no
supposed
rules
to do.
and there's no follow-through.
Same guy walks out of the
Absolutely.
barracks and goes home for the weekend, and they'll do that.
No. Trust me.
No.
Exactly. Because it has been inculcated in them.
Into them.
Yes.
It has been inculcated in the values have actually been because you've lived in that environment.
Yes.
Now, can you imagine if you transformed? How many people do you have in public service? If you managed to actually ensure that the public service worked that way, the rest of us, my friend,
We'd fall in line.
We would fall in
We
line.
keep giving an example. of
It's a good place to start.
the late Honorable John Mishuki and what he did with the transport sector. People fell in line. He set it out. These are the guidelines. This is what people are going to follow. This is what we're going to do. People welcomed the order and lived by those rules, and then even went as far as demanding that kind of order from people wherever they went. You don't have your seatbelt, not because you're going to get in trouble, but because it is the right thing to do. And it was clear that everybody fell in line. So
People
if that kind of
walked.
order,
They
people
walked,
walked. People
yes.
would have rather walked than take those errant matatus. So people will fall in line. I'm telling you, the fish
Leadership.
rots from the head. The fish rots from the head. If those guidelines are set in place by the people that we have put in a position to lead us, if those guidelines and that order is set in place, people will follow. They will follow.
I couldn't agree with you more. But the thing is this, that there are things we don't even need to be told by anyone because we know them. We are rational people. We know what is good and what is wrong.
I think, Kano, let's actually acknowledge that we've gotten to a place where we don't know them. Let's get to that point. Until the moment when we acknowledge that, I think there's a place where people do not have, it's become grey. What's right, what's wrong. It's what's right A, what's right B. What's wrong A, but it's wrong only if. But in this circumstance, it may not be wrong. We are in that situation as a country.
I think we've got into a place whereby we are more interested in the form as opposed to the substance.
Yes.
As a people.
You've
You
said
understand?
it.
That's it.
You understand? So there are things that may not be so important, the things that actually we spend so much time on without necessarily, being concerned about what is actually important to drive this country forward. And I think that is where the conversation should begin from. How do we then move people from focusing on those irrelevancies and focus on things that are very relevant? A lot of time actually, and we have got a very big youth population in this country. And any serious country should be able to harness this energy of the youth to move that country forward. You understand? And it is an area that, in my own view, the government, and I'm not speaking as a government spokesperson, I'm speaking as a Kenyan who is a bit knowledgeable,
citizen
as a citizen of this country, that there is so much that the government has put in place to be able to help the youth of this country to be able to, be empowered.
So where is the gap?
How many of us are aware about the existence of these programs?
Is the information shared?
So it's lack of information.
Is the information shared? Is
or
it
many people know and then they don't take up.
People know and they're not
because people have gotten to a point whereby you understand?
It's not going to work.
That's
mistrust. It's the mistrust.
Even when it is something that can be able to assist them.
Something that can benefit
So in the
me.
process, a few people who believe will benefit, and many, not many, just a few have benefited.
No, many. Actually,
there are many.
Many.
There are many.
Many.
If you audited the people who've benefited from the Youth Fund, for example, and Wezo Fund, genuinely benefited, there are many. And then those who have abused it as well.
Also many.
Colonel, the truth is that the things that the government actually does are positive, and there are many. But we will pick on the things that concern us and magnify them and make it sound as though the government does nothing, and that is not true. We know the government does a lot.
It's true.
Yes, we are simply saying, up your game.
And that is good for us. And personally, I keep on saying that the media is playing a very, very important role, because without the media, then we'll not be able to have, an institution that can criticize the government for the government to be able to up its game. So to me, really, even being called here, I would never have said no, right? Because this is a platform to be able to also inform the public what the government is doing for them. Understand? Even try to put some facts straight. So yes, the government has to be at every time be reminded that here you're not doing well.
Yep.
You should up your game. And who is better placed to do that? The media.
The media.
Yes.
And also we tell the people, when all of us as a society, we have lost it, or we are not doing well, or we need to up our game. It's the same thing that we keep doing. And that's what we're actually doing now, this last 23 minutes of the hour. We're talking about, as a nation, we've talked about this over and over and over again, but we can't tire from talking about it. There are things that the government should do, and you're here, the government spokesman is here, but also there's a citizen, Oguna, who's in the studio, who's also telling us, as one of us, I can see what we are not doing as a country, and let's discuss that. It's 22 minutes to 10 o'clock. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How, you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
Okay, Thika Road, not so bad. I told you it would dissipate in terms of what the situation was. All right, looking better, trying to get into the city centre. Mombasa Road is still more or less bumper to bumper, but you'll get where you're going eventually. Coming round to 10 o'clock in about 20 minutes, the situation on traffic is not going to be so bad. All right, coming in from Gong Road as well as Langata Road, trying to head into the CBD won't be too much of a headache anymore at this time. Something out of the ordinary that you do see, don't hesitate to give us a call. 0719-012-600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Have you been watching us on Facebook, YouTube, and www.spicefm.co.ke? Good morning, and how are you doing? Let's wave at you. Okay, come on, guys, say hello to
Hello.
And thank you very much for watching every morning. Every morning we live stream the Situation Room between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. on Spice FM on Facebook, on YouTube, Spice FM, and also on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. This is because this is the first and only full-time audio-visual radio station. So when we are on air both on radio and on screen on video. We have retired Colonel Cyrus Oguna with us in the studio this morning, and we've been talking about, in the past hour we had invited him to come and talk about the Likoni tragedy. But now we are continuing the daily conversations, and the conversation this hour is being spearheaded by Ndu Oko, who has brought out the issue of the children, the 10,000 or so children who've been affected by the closure of about 300 schools. Some of them are actually going to be going into an exam in the next couple of days.
Yeah, we have quite a large percentage of that number going to sit for the KCPE and the KCSE exams. And of course, there is a lot of hue and cry now in terms of where they will sit these exams, and some of them have been out of school. I mean, with credit to the government, they've said, we close down these schools for now, but we ask you to go and enroll in the public schools that are in your area. Some parents have refused to do that because they feel that the support that they would get is not what they would be looking for, and also the quality that they would get at these public schools is not what they were looking for when they applied to enroll their children in these private schools to begin with. I mean, so that has led us to very many conversations in terms of the measures that we took after this tragedy that happened at Precious Talent, the measures that we took to make sure that we don't get to this place again. But of course, looking at the laxity with which this was handled in the first place, and to say that we cannot continue to have these incidents where we are running after ourselves or chasing our tails, because that's what it looks like, unless any other kind of information is shared with us in terms of what is actually being done. And of course, we want people to answer. I think the time is slowly grinding to a halt, whereby things can just happen and nobody's going to ask questions or nobody's going to take responsibility for any kind of action. And I think, again, it requires us to demand for these answers and to say really what is happening, and to then be able to pass the information back and say, well, unfortunately, that is not enough.
But this situation is one of lack of communication.
It's lack of communication.
You see, I am now speaking not as citizen C.T. Muga, but as someone who is an educator. So I understand what the government does in respect to ensuring that examinations are carried out properly. Believe me, they have a plan in place. They just haven't communicated it clearly, but they have a plan in place.
To the wider public?
They haven't. The Kenya National Examination Council, the Ministry of Education, believe me, they know what to do in these circumstances. They have not communicated it. We don't hear of it. But I think. I know.
That's true. And I've said before also, on paper, Kenya, whichever sector you want to look at, you can even take it to the world. On paper, in Kenya, it's done beautifully. I would dare say that other countries have even adopted what has been put on paper in Kenya in terms of policy and in terms of implementation. They've implemented it on their side, and it's been done very well.
To great effect.
Now, here in this country, taking things from paper, implementing it, actualizing it, and then seeing results, something happens along the way.
The
Even
human
if it is
beings in it.
implemented,
It does.
it
It
happens
does.
along the way that seems
It
to
does.
stop us from actually
But
seeing the
remember,
results.
the period during which we have our exams, it also tends to be the period when natural elements also interfere with what we do.
Rain,
floods. Still, think, how often do you hear of situations where schools didn't have exams?
They still have their exams.
Yes.
Those
they
are
do.
things that could not have been avoided.
Yes. When schools are shut down as a response to a problem that existed. Why am I making this statement on behalf of a government and we have a government spokesman?
Voila.
You get stuck. Wade in.
Yeah. Indeed, I think something that you already addressed, and we're saying that yes, action has been taken, and the government always has plans about everything. Even when an action is taken, and it may look like the government is reacting, but thereafter there'll always be a plan on how the result of that reaction should be addressed. So all this that we are hearing about, the government certainly has got concrete plans on how to deal with it. Indeed, there are floods all over the place, especially in those areas of northeastern provinces. But trust me, the government, and even if you listen to what the Minister of Interior was saying yesterday, that the police have got new aircraft,
right,
that
for
will
the purposes
ensure
of
that
exams.
yes, that every school will sit for an exam, every student, irrespective of whether people may think that the areas are impassable or flooded, but there will be exams. But something you did mention also about the fact that we have got very good policy documents that are hardly ever implemented, and they're implemented by other people and they run away with it. An example that of course many people would normally want to give is what they're calling Kenya Meat Commission of Botswana. Well, not
well, there you go.
The Kenya Meat Commission of
Botswana. That's a perfect example, but there are many others that we can give. I was in Rwanda, if I could just maybe digress a little bit.
Please digress.
And we assisted Rwanda as Kenya to be where it is. All institutions that are now being loaded in Rwanda were actually assisted
by Kenyans.
Can
and
you
I was
believe
there
it?
for a year and a half. But sometimes it pains me as a Kenyan that we're going to Rwanda to learn how to keep our cities clean. It's not embarrassment.
Just imagine. Just think about that.
So Kenyans
Let
went
it-
to Rwanda
let it sink in a little.
and implemented something in Rwanda where Rwandans are now keeping their city clean, and now Kenyans are going to Rwanda
To learn how
to
to benchmark on how to
benchmark
keep
on-
cities clean. It is, to me, really, is a big embarrassment.
It's
They should be
nonsensical,
coming
let's
to
just put it.
us as the big brother who assisted them to put some of the institutions in place.
To learn
And why
more.
do we get there? How did we get there? I think there is a serious issue that we have as a country whereby everything comes and everything goes. We are not a country that can say that this is wrong and it should never happen.
It's clear that the responsibility is not owned. And that's what I'm saying. So if we if you look at owning responsibility, and it goes as far as even sovereignty of your nation, going and owning responsibility from the smallest, from the micro to the macro, I think we definitely then we would see a change, but we don't own it.
We don't own it. I
It's
agree with
Colonel
you, but
Lagunas,
also even
it's
the
CTs,
media.
it's the next
media
person.
also has, if I could perhaps just rope the media in a little bit,
Bring
they also
us
have
in.
a big role to play, and we're seeing a media that is completely, many times they fly off the handle without necessarily, it's a media that
Do tell. Okay, so now let's get your feedback.
Now, this is a citizen giving the media feedback.
We'll take the information
I'll give a basic example. And all of us watched this, and it's something that has been documented many times. When Times Tower was being hit by the terrorists, what image do you have today when the Times Tower in the US 2001?
The two planes.
The Twin Towers, yes.
The Twin
Towers.
We see the
When
two
it was,
planes.
what else do you see or do you remember?
The building.
The building coming down.
What else do you remember?
People running.
What else do you remember?
Covered in dust.
Lots of smoke.
Lots of smoke. What else do you remember?
I remember the Patriotic Act that came into play thereafter.
Fine.
Well, I remember that we heard it around the world
let's go to
very
Westgate.
fast.
What do you remember of Westgate?
Hey.
Wow.
People crying.
People crying. I mean, there was a lot. I was in Westgate when it happened, so I remember there was total
confusion.
chaos.
But
I was
about
right
those
there.
of us who are not there? What do we remember?
I remember seeing, of course, the people who were trapped being brought out by Red Cross. I remember seeing the Recce guys going in. I remember seeing the military going in. I also remember seeing now at that point on the ramp where we had people who were bleeding and they had been hit by the grenades there. I remember seeing those images.
But did you see any dead bodies during the Twin Tower?
No.
Why? We know about 4,000
because
people
even
died.
in a tragedy, that particular nation is very careful about the images that are sent out.
What about
because they're still
ourselves?
protecting their state sovereignty.
What
and
about
that's
ourselves?
very clear.
Precise. What about ourselves? You talked about blood flowing everywhere. You saw blood. Basically, what you're saying that we cannot deal with this. That's what the media is saying to the rest of the world. We will need help. What America is saying that you have hit us, but we can manage. So it is the media that we cannot deal with the Dusit. People running all over the place. The media wants to be, why? What do you derive? What do you get by showing somebody bleeding all over? Even in America, people bleed. Even in the UK, people bleed. But do they show it? No. So the media now, in my view, has a serious problem. Serious. You don't have to get, somebody bleeding all over for your paper to sell. You don't have to. So we have a media that is completely either commercialized, that has got no values, no sensitivity.
There's always been the question, though, of what dictates what is actually put in the media, for example. Is it what the people desire to see that is put there, or it is what you as a media house decides?
I think it's the media policy.
And or what the government wants us to see.
The government would not want to see those dead bodies, trust me. Even if the media doesn't want to see those dead bodies, the Kenyan society would not want to see the dead bodies too, because you shape their perception. Right? But here's a media that has perfected the art of showing those gory pictures. That is one. But the other one is why the media is like they don't live in this country. That they are refugees here, and that as soon as their issues are sorted out in their country, they will go back. That everything that this country does is just negative. Honestly, there's so many positive things.
You see now, this is what I was saying. It's interesting that you've brought that through, because yes, there's so many negative things, and even though that is what is being reported, I think you have a unique position and a unique opportunity to share that information with us, because it's a bit sad also that we must dig for this.
You don't have to.
So where is
let me give you an example.
This is the question.
Right
where
now,
is this information? Where is it?
Mwalimu, there is an issue that is simmering now between Kenya and Somalia.
Somalia, yes.
All right?
Yes.
But our media has actually assisted the neighbor.
In the way they report.
In the way
they report. The way we report.
The way we report, yes.
Actually, this is a communication war, but you're fighting their war for them. You understand? Why don't we fight our war for ourselves? Why is it that you're always putting our government and our country in the corner?
So you're saying our media is not patriotic?
It's not. Completely. And maybe they don't even know that.
We don't realize.
They don't realize that. Even issues of national interest, none of them understands. Completely.
Does the government have a forum, a means to ensuring that the media actually understands
and are aware of what their role is when it comes to national interest and sovereignty, for example?
Does a process of that nature exist?
In any communication institute or school, they have those issues, and that's what they teach their students. So I'm sure you also taught about this, and you as well. And
of course.
But then how do you forget?
Let me bring in, sorry to cut you short. I've got a caller here. Teddy, good morning.
Good morning.
How
are you?
Salama kabisa.
Fine, thank you, Teddy.
Yeah. Mr. Colonel Ogun, how are you?
Fine, and how are you?
I'm doing good. I appreciate your good job, by the way. You're doing a nice job, but have an issue.
Okay.
Why does the government, or why can't you advise the government to have some citizen assemblies, whereby you engage with the citizens and the citizens engage with the government directly? you see, so that we can avoid these things. And even the thing of showing the dead bodies in the media, that's something tragic. I think the government should step in. And as maybe because of your profession, I know you have the discipline that you learn from the forces. You should advise the government to curtail all these things, to do away with all these things, because it becomes hectic to the citizen and society and bad norms.
Teddy, that's a tricky path, because you're now asking the government to curtail the freedom of the press.
No, not the freedom. I'm not talking about the freedom. But do you think, because you have freedom, even in your home, even if you have a freedom, do you think it's better you allow everyone to do whatever he wants, even if it is freedom or democracy?
I agree completely. Even I can't do what I want in my house all the time.
There's government.
Yes, there's the government.
And that's what I'm talking, because it's good. You know, Colonel,
yes,
I know you can do this.
Okay.
You can do this, and the way you speak, what I like about is that even if the government is not on the right side, you try to reason with the citizens. And that's something I like about you, Mr. Ferris.
Asante sana.
So, what you can do for us, I want you to be an eye. What you learned from the disciplined forces. And about that thing of Rwanda, it's good you've talked about Rwanda. We spent a lot of money, people going to benchmarking there. Some people went to Nashville.
Teddy,
see, you can remember some people went to Nashville.
Teddy, your point is taken. Thank you very much, Teddy, for your call this morning. I think it's just given ideas on what to do, and I want to give you that opportunity now to give us your closing remarks as we come to the end of the show this morning, Carol.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Really, it's been. Perhaps I think this may be the first radio station in Nairobi that have, that has been invited me, and I'm really, really, humbled by this. We are going to celebrate Mashujaa Day on 20th of October, and what would wish to ask the public is that to try and reflect on what this day means to us, as a people. We fought for this independence. But we have got also people who fought for independence for us, and this is a day to celebrate them. But we must reflect on ourselves. If we were them with the values that we have today, would we have been able to fight this? Try to fight and remove the colonialist with the values that we have today, that everybody for himself, that we don't care about the next door neighbor. I'm just thinking that that is something that we need to reflect on as a people and look at our values.
Asante sana, Carol.
Thank you so much.
Thank you also for coming and for accepting our invitation. We'll invite you, of course, again. You come, we talk about things that affect all of us as citizenry. Thank you for your calls this morning and for tuning in from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every morning. Join us again tomorrow morning. The Situation Room is Kenya's biggest conversation. Tomorrow from 6 to 10, of course, we'll be back here. Today at 3 o'clock, you'll be joining Monique. We'll be taking you home in the Spice Drive. And of course, remember, from 7 to 10 o'clock, you have adults in the room. That's Emmanuel and Eric and Barbara. Till tomorrow, good morning. It's 10 o'clock.